Deep within a quiet forest, three gods stood over a bundle wrapped in cloth, staring down at a crying human infant, left utterly alone. Ronan declared he would raise the boy as his successor. Vandal promised to shape him into the greatest healer alive, and together they named him Will. Years later, Will sprinted through the trees atop his wolf companion Schultz, both fleeing from something massive that thundered closer behind them with every passing second. Will tapped a signal against the ground and ordered Schultz to seize the creature's attention, while he circled around to strike from another direction entirely. Facing the towering green ogre, Will raised his blade and shouted that laying waste to the forest and harming its animals would not go unpunished. Gripping his sword tightly, Will drove forward with a furious cry and cut the ogre down before it could retaliate against him or Schultz. With the fight over, Will knelt among the wounded creatures of the forest, weaving healing magic over rabbits, deer, and other frightened animals nearby. A small rabbit nuzzled against him in gratitude, while Schultz reminded Will that sword practice back home could not simply be skipped forever. Will waved farewell to the gathered animals, promising to visit again soon, then leapt onto Schultz's back as they raced off toward home. As they ran, Will quietly told Schultz that he had once been an orphan, uncertain whether war or famine had caused his abandonment. Long before, an infant Will had drifted alone on a small wooden boat until a mysterious hooded traveler and a great bird discovered him. That traveler led him to Table Mountain, where Ronan, the god of swords, Miria, the goddess of health, and Vandal, the god of magic, waited. Among them stood Rias, the god of omnipotence, a being of 1,000 avatars who had carried Will there in the first place. Table Mountain rose above the clouds, a sacred peak where these gods resided, far removed from the world of ordinary mortals below. Returning home atop Schultz, Will smiled and reminded himself that he had been raised entirely by gods upon that very mountain. Ronan grumbled at Will for being late, while Miria rushed forward anxiously asking whether he had been hurt during his encounter outside. Miria praised Will for handling the ogre so effortlessly, while Ronan proudly insisted that he alone deserved credit for teaching him swordsmanship. Miria scolded Ronan, arguing that after such a dangerous fight, it was clearly her turn to teach Will healing instead of swords. Ignoring their bickering, Vandal calmly invited Will to sit and study history together, leaving Ronan and Miria still arguing behind them. Grinning, Ronan told Will he might finally receive the dagger he wanted, depending entirely on how well he performed in practice. Excited beyond measure, young Will begged Ronan to let him practice swordsmanship immediately, while Miria and Vandal watched his enthusiasm with quiet amusement. Ronan set a challenge, declaring that cutting through a thick tree stump using pure sword pressure alone would prove Will worthy of passing. Ronan demonstrated first, slicing the stump apart with terrifying force, leaving Will staring in stunned disbelief at the sheer power displayed before him. Determined, Will attempted the same technique on another stump, and to everyone's shock, he cleaved through it just as cleanly as his father. Ronan corrected his form afterward, explaining that swinging without focusing the blade's tip properly would never cut through anything meaningful or lasting. Will struggled to grasp the concept, his swings falling short of true precision, while Ronan quietly wondered if the boy simply needed more time. Concentrating harder, Will unleashed another furious strike, the blade tearing through the air with a force that startled even Ronan watching nearby. Impressed, despite himself, Ronan admitted the swing was genuinely well done, prompting Will to ask eagerly whether his father truly meant it. As reward for his progress, Ronan presented Will with a brand new dagger, which the boy accepted with wide-eyed, delighted excitement. Vandal arrived just as Will blasted another stump apart, remarking with surprise at how effortlessly the boy destroyed it, using raw swordsmanship alone. Vandal then decided it was time Will began studying magic, offering him the Book of the Fire Dragon despite Will already knowing its contents. Skeptical, Vandal challenged Will to prove his claim, stunned further when Will fluently read and channeled spells written in ancient magic dialect. Will successfully summoned Firestorm, a swirling torrent of fire and wind, leaving both Vandal and himself amazed at how well it worked. Latter, a small hamster, explained to Miria that Will had used his healing magic to save injured animals throughout the surrounding forest. Overjoyed at the news, Miria pulled Will into a tight embrace, praising him affectionately as her wonderfully talented and precious little student. Worried Will might faint from the hug, Ronan and Vandal watched as the boy recovered and asked permission to show animals his new dagger. Reyes, watching from above in eagle form, observed quietly that Will had grown exactly as the gods once predicted he eventually would. Ronan agreed, admitting the boy had grown far beyond their original expectations, while Miria smiled softly at how much time had passed. Memories drifted back to when they first debated raising a human child, with Ronan gruffly insisting he wanted nothing to do with it. Yet even then, Vandal compared baby Will to a marshmallow, hinting that his gruff exterior already hid genuine affection underneath. Ronan admitted with a sigh that he disliked small children, calling them loud and greedy while glancing at the sleeping infant nearby. Miria countered playfully, calling the baby the world's kindest child, gesturing toward timid forest animals who had gathered simply to check on him. Ronan studied the infant's tiny hands closely, muttering about their smallness, while Miria proudly declared this baby destined to become the greatest healer alive. Ronan suddenly announced his decision, vowing that once the boy grew older he would personally teach him how to properly hold a sword. He continued boldly, claiming the god of swords would transform this child into a devoted apprentice worthy of carrying his own legacy forward. Miria protested immediately, insisting she never agreed to Ronan dangling something so barbaric before the baby. Since she intended to raise a healer, Vandal interrupted their bickering, questioning aloud why this baby needed to be forced into becoming either a swordsman or dedicated healer already. The infant giggled innocently at their squabbling, prompting Vandal to remark on his good humor before considering teaching the clever child his magic. Rhea swooped down abruptly, scolding all three gods for quarreling, and threatening to take the child away to another world entirely. Vandal argued that knowledge would save the boy. Miria insisted kindness and healing mattered most, while Ronan maintained that strength alone offered true protection. Rhea's proposed a compromise, suggesting the three gods simply take turns teaching the child everything they each believed was truly important. Ronan and Vandal agreed readily, both liking the idea of rotating lessons rather than continuing their endless argument over the infant's future. Miria declared joyfully that they would give him the grandest education imaginable, combining sword, healing, and magic into one remarkable upbringing. Each god envisioned their own version of his future, imagining him as their strongest successor in magic, healing, or unmatched swordsmanship someday. Reyes, listening quietly, agreed to contribute something himself, having already decided long ago that he alone would guide the child's true purpose. Reyes explained that when he first discovered the abandoned infant drifting alone, he had received a revelation about the boy's inevitable future. He believed teaching Will to live freely, without unnecessary restraints, would ultimately shape him into the person destiny intended him to become. Years later, Schultz noticed Will often staring toward the outskirts of the mountain, curious about whatever lay beyond the god's sacred domain. Will explained that Father Ronan had told him it was his fate to eventually descend the mountain and enter the wider world. He admitted the world remained full of temptation and danger, meaning his parents still needed to teach him more before he could leave. Schultz suggested calling him a hero, someone who mastered swordsmanship, magic, and healing altogether, prompting Will to ponder the fitting title thoughtfully. Will admitted he once searched his own body for the birthmark that Father Vandal claimed every true hero was supposedly born bearing. Schultz reasoned that since Will's father once described heroes as those risking themselves defending the defenseless, Will already fit that definition perfectly. Schultz declared that Will was already considered a hero among those who lived peacefully upon this sacred mountain, alongside its guardian animals. Overwhelmed by the sudden realization, Will shouted his acceptance into the open sky, standing proudly beside Schultz atop the mountain's edge. From that moment onward, Will embraced the title happily, calling himself this mountain's hero with a confident, mischievous smile across his face. Ronan and Miria overheard the declaration, exchanging amused glances while acknowledging that being hero of the god's mountain sounded genuinely impressive indeed. Miria announced she would prepare dinner for her precious Will, while Ronan insisted on cooking himself since she often burned the meals. 7 years passed, and Miria wondered aloud where Will had wandered off to again before he came running back home. Now 14 years old, Will stood tall and ready, having finally reached the long-awaited age when his true departure would begin. Beneath the towering gates of a sacred temple, Luna Maria kneels in silence and offers a prayer to the Earth's great mother goddess, awaiting divine guidance for the trial ahead. The goddess answers her prayer with a sacred oracle, and Luna Maria rises at once, declaring to the stunned priests around her that she must travel to the god's mountain immediately. Meanwhile, atop that mountain, Will trains fiercely among falling apples and rustling trees, moving with practiced precision, while his loyal wolf companion Schultz watches over him from a distance. After training, Will rests against Schultz's soft fur, savoring the apples Schultz brought him and enjoying the gentle mountain breeze as their quiet, comfortable friendship continues undisturbed by the outside world. Schultz notices how quickly Will has grown since childhood and quietly asks whether he intends to leave the mountain soon, sensing that their peaceful days together are nearing their end. Will confirms it solemnly, revealing that Father Ryu's once told him he was destined to descend the mountain and become the world's savior, a duty he cannot ignore. Will apologizes to Schultz, worried that no one will protect the mountain's animals once he departs. Though Schultz insists this world truly needs someone exactly like him. Schultz reassures him teasingly, reminding Will that plenty of strong fighters remain on the mountain, including the powerful bear Hachi, more than capable of guarding their home. The wolves nearby joke about Schultz and Weiss growing close, urging them to marry soon, while Will admits he genuinely wishes he could stay and travel alongside them instead. Schultz gently reminds Will that the mountain will always be his home, and that their bond will never truly end. No matter how far he travels, carrying apples for his father to taste, Will embraces Schultz warmly before suddenly sensing an unfamiliar scent, realizing that strangers are approaching their forbidden, sacred mountain territory. Concentrating hard, Will detects multiple armored figures moving nearby, their breathing and clanking metal betraying their presence, long before they come into view among the trees. A small bird lands beside Will, chirping urgently, and when he questions its behavior, it insists he deliver a message straight to its parents without delay. Will notices the bird's unusually soft heartbeat, and reasons that either side-chasing or being chased could be in the wrong, deciding simply to save the woman regardless. Schultz agrees with his reasoning, adding wryly that in nearly every story, those who chase after women are almost always revealed to be the villains. Deeper in the forest, Luna Maria sprints desperately through the trees. Her white robes, flowing as armored pursuers, shout for her to stop running immediately. Cornered at last, Luna Maria stands her ground as the soldiers close in, warning her coldly that she has nowhere left to run and will forfeit her life here. Luna Maria declares proudly that her body and life belong entirely to the gods she serves, refusing to let barbarians like them claim what is not theirs. When Luna Maria demands to know who ordered this attack against her, the masked soldier scoffs, refusing outright to answer such an unnecessary question from his target. As blades clash violently around her, another soldier mocks her faith, sneering that she should instead ask her precious mother goddess for help escaping this deadly ambush. The armored knights close in around Luna Maria, shouting that she stands alone and mocking her defiance as she struggles against their relentless, coordinated assault in the forest. Arrows and blades rain down as the lead knight screams for her death, yet Luna Maria stands firm, refusing to surrender, despite the overwhelming force surrounding her completely. Suddenly Will arrives with Schultz beside him, stepping calmly into the chaos, his sharp gaze immediately assessing the desperate priestess and the armored men threatening her life. The startled knights question who this boy and his massive wolf even are, wondering how someone could appear so far from any nearby town or settlement. Will remarks dryly that these villains fit exactly the tale Schultz once told him, confirming there is no reason left to hold back against such wicked men. Luna Maria addresses him respectfully as Lord Hero, though Will seems confused by the unfamiliar title while calmly offering to save her without hesitation from the coming fight. Will warns the knights this sacred ground forbids trespassers, offering mercy if they leave now, but they refuse and order their men to kill them both instead. Holding back his true strength, Will admits he could cut through their heavy armor easily, yet restrains himself while striking down attackers one after another methodically. The knights panic as Will vanishes from sight between strikes, reappearing instantly to fell another soldier before calling out to Schultz for backup nearby. With the fight finished, Will asks if Luna Maria is hurt, and she assures him gratefully that she remains unharmed entirely, thanks to his fantastic display of strength. Confused by her formal address, Will asks what exactly this Lord Hero title she keeps repeating is even supposed to mean regarding his own identity. Luna Maria introduces herself properly as the blind priestess devoted to the great mother goddess, apologizing for entering the holy mountain and bringing dangerous brigands along unknowingly. Will recalls that Vandal once taught him about this same ancient mother goddess, remembering she was said to bring fertility and blessings to the land itself. Luna Maria explains her goal is meeting the youth raised by the mountain's gods, and Will realizes with surprise that she must be referring directly to him. Will admits he is the only human raised here by the gods, though Luna Maria notices he lacks the hero's mark, leaving her momentarily uncertain and confused. After a pause, she concludes there is no mistake since everything matches exactly what the great mother goddess had foretold to her through the sacred oracle. Luna Maria declares her faith in that oracle completely, insisting the savior destined to bring harmony between good and evil must truly be Will himself. She explains the attacking brigands were likely hired by heretics who opposed their meeting, people determined to prevent this fated encounter from ever taking place. Will introduces Schultz as his dear partner, surprising Luna Maria that he can communicate with animals, while Schultz suddenly senses an unfamiliar scent drifting nearby. Luna Maria warns that their enemy's allies likely remain close, prompting Will to urge caution as scattered weapons litter the ground around their tense surroundings. More enemy soldiers emerge from the trees, Frustrated that Luna Maria still lives, Will presses forward with Schultz to intercept the fresh wave of attackers. Will vows to eliminate both remaining threats carefully, as the soldiers warn each other to stay wary of the strange boy traveling alongside his massive wolf companion. Luna Maria warns urgently that their opponent wields a magic weapon, cautioning Will not to let his guard drop against this newly revealed and dangerous threat. Will steps protectively in front of Luna Maria, telling her to stay behind him, though she insists such protection feels unnecessary, while thanking him for his willingness anyway. Luna Maria asks if the enemy intends to use fire magic, noting everything nearby seems destined to turn red, but Will corrects her that strength isn't the true problem. Will observes that these soldiers brought serious trouble along with them, denying he is the one responsible for the strange phenomenon suddenly unfolding before them. A massive creature bursts violently through the trees, scattering soldiers aside, leaving Will and Luna Maria stunned as they wonder what such a thing is doing here. Luna Maria gasps in shock, recognizing the beast's crimson scales, realizing with dread that a red-scaled dragon has somehow appeared right before them. An enormous dragon abruptly dropped from the heavens, its bellow rattling the battleground. Will watch the creature evenly, while the sightless cleric detected its immense living energy and unequaled might. The dragon squinted its gaze, fixing onto the plated troops who now shook under its stare. In the distance, a hooded person exposed the fact it was chasing the warriors who had disrupted its den. Frantic, the troops lifted their weapons, attempting to push it back, but dread of defeat blurred their focus. Despite their attempts, shafts rebounded uselessly off the dragon's hide. A knight used an enchanted armament, seeking to puncture its skin. Even magical blows faltered. The dragon remained uninjured, its stare turning harsher by the moment. Dread consumed the troops. Terror surged as they understood they were completely overpowered. Will remained steady, guarding Luna Maria, his gaze fixed on the foe, prepared to move. The dragon parted its mouth, releasing a wave of fire toward the running troops. Fire swallowed the battleground, creating little but rolling ash and burned earth in their path. One of the commanders stiffened, overwhelmed by the ruinous might happening before him. Appearing from the inferno, Will dragged two wounded warriors to shelter, his steady closeness opposing the disorder. He cautioned that further defiance would only restore remains, telling them their futures still meant to others. With determination, Will moved ahead, confronting the dragon openly, using its anger back from the everyone. Uncertainty covered the area as troops wondered if a youth could fight before that a creature. Unshaken, Will moved ahead with certainty, telling those behind him he had a strategy. The colossal dragon rose above, however he continued without dread. Sword in grip, with quiet determination, he readied his armament, building concentration as stunned watchers looked. Using from lessons in sorcery from his parents, Will started combining might into his knife. With weapons drawn, Will released his frost sorcery in area, covering the battleground in ice. The dragon's fire collided with the magic, but to everyone's amazement, the flame hardened into frost, its frame shuddered, fractures forming across its hide as the cold deepened. Sealed in glittering frost, the formerly powerful creature remained immobile, stilled by immense might. Seeing the outcome, Will's companions gazed in wonder, while he evenly readied for the following step. Astonished by the immobile remains of the dragon, the troops could only stare at Will's immense might. Their dread shifted to terror as they called him a fiend, running without a moment look. As harmony returned, the sightless cleric gradually lifted her covering, showing her gaze for the initial moment. With poise, she presented herself, declaring her loyalty to the mother goddess of earth. She moved nearer, grinning gently, and requested for the hero's identity, her tone covered with joy. With gentle modesty, Will eventually answered his identity, showing only that he was mortal. A soft grin appeared as he explained the fact his guardians were deities who lifted him. The cleric maintained he was still a hero, fated to restore harmony, as predicted by sacred prophecy. Despite her darkness, she accepted her belief, saying she couldn't view the sign, even if it appeared. Without remorse, she confirmed her choice, having sacrificed her vision freely in devotion to the goddess. Sitting beside his beast partner, Will heard silently, considering her remarks with a steady stare. She exposed her sharpened perception, describing how noise directed her movements, even in darkness. Her playful manner eased the scene, suggesting she had heard much than she revealed on. Vowing not to be a hindrance, she stated her willingness to support him in combat. With palms over her chest, she requested him to journey with her and protect the realm jointly. Will said he was previously intending to depart, startling the cleric, who viewed it as fate. While he was ready, he voiced worry that the deities who lifted him might refuse. The memory of the several watchful deities appeared in his thoughts, all strongly against to his voyage. However, one god backed him, and the cleric promised to gain approval on his sake. With determination, they decided to leave jointly, moving ahead into the choice that waited them. Will stopped as the cleric moved for her cover, uncertain of her aim. He said her gaze were too lovely to skin, his remarks gentle and honest. Flushing, she decided to leave the cover off, her grin shining with joy. With feelings matched, they readied for the voyage forward, feelings silently growing between them. Grip in grip, they traveled ahead toward the place where the deities and Will's fate waited. A small eagle brought word to the deities Will was coming, and he wasn't solo. The goddess, from learning this, surged with feeling. She promised to judge the girl's value herself. Will guides his partner to the holy temple atop the peak, the dwelling of the deities who lifted him. As they travel along the mountain choice, he states that sacred forms are preserved with aid from creatures. Within, the mood grows strained. The deities detect the guests and respond. A mighty goddess reveals herself, emitting sacred force. The partner understands these immense entities are Will's actual guardians. Will discovers himself apologizing after accidentally interrupting. Meeting a woman who follows the mother goddess, the god Ronin asks her aim, wary of her closeness around Will. Instead than reject, she evenly acknowledges his concerns, describing her loyalty and intent to assist Will. A sacred eruption erupts from the goddess, rejecting to approve the girl as Will's partner. Disorder ensues, sparking an abrupt bride versus mother-in-law conflict that stuns all there. Luna Maria blushes as she admits her affection, ready to follow Will's desire without delay. Touched by her honesty, Will imagines a life with her, using nearer in a scene of bond. Quiet area breaks when sacred anger erupts, denying the chance of their marriage with intense energy. Amid the disorder, a clear tone orders steady, showing an unknown eagle watching the scene. That eagle, Reus, the god of omnipotence, arrives, his closeness ordering quiet from all around. Luna Maria states her intent to depart with Will. Meeting the deities with resolves, she bravely declares that Will's future lies outside the peak, and she plans to assist him. Will expresses his own desire to voyage with Luna Maria, his initial actual mortal companion. Though delay arises, Reus leaves the choice in Will's palms, honoring his decision still. The deities tone worry, caution of the world's threats, and the sorrow of allowing leave. Luna Maria bravely promises to defend Will from any danger, drawing a startled however interested reaction. The deities, moved by her determination, agree to a requirement if she and Will can clear a test. Though one goddess complains jealously, all several deities officially there the task. Standing next by next, she and Will vow to defeat anything the test may contain. The deities ready to start, sharing playful comments, as Ronin asks the senior to begin with the initial judge. With a flick of his shining hand, the senior god creates the initial judge, his face steady but blank. Two glasses covered with liquid appear. Will is asked to bring one to a faraway pine trunk seen on the peak. They are sacrificed 2 and 1 requirement, no spilling in 1 speck. Reassured by Luna Maria's certainty, Will agrees, and they decide to face the task jointly. The deities grant their approval, watching as the pair sets off on their test. Will stretches to ready, while Luna Maria evenly states her willingness to start the test. With resolve, he dashes ahead, holding the cup carefully. As Luna Maria ensues behind, concerned, she warns him the liquid might spill from that reckless speed. To her surprise, the liquid remains perfectly still, unshaken by the movement. In sync, both extend their palms and grab each other's cup, gaze wide with explained understanding. Noticing the wobbling liquid, Luna Maria suggests slowing down. Will agrees, grateful for the adjustment. They continue at a steady pace, grinning and relaxed as woodland creatures silently watch them clear. Despite fatigue, Will maintains perfect posture, worry grows. At this pace, they might not finish in moment. Luna Maria hesitates, uncertain she can speed up without spilling. Will proposes a risky shortcut through rough terrain, fully aware of the threats. Determined, Luna Maria agrees she'd instead risk it than fail from delay. Will guides Luna Maria through the rugged shortcut, helping her over obstacles with steady palms. She stumbles briefly, prompting Will to ask if she is all right. Though startled, she insists she's fine. Taking a scene to rest, Will reflects on their task, suspecting Vandal anticipated this struggle when assigning the test. Despite the strain, he remains composed, showing that years of running with creatures built his stamina. When Luna Maria recalls being called his companion, the memory flusters them both, creating feelings racing. Luna Maria smiles gently, declaring that friendship with Will is the greatest honor she could receive. Curious, Will asks about everyone with strength like his. She assures him that while powerful people exist, None are quite like him. Abruptly, the word dragon sparks Will's memory, and both simultaneously realize the key to their task. Meanwhile, the deities sip tea, evenly watching the happening test from afar. Single goddess smirks knowingly, calling out the everyone for making the task too difficult. The deities agree Will could have finished easily solo, but adding Lunamaria changed everything. Single goddess playfully anticipates comforting Will, while the final 5 minutes tick back. Vandal shifts uncomfortably, doubting their chances. The senior god asks him to view again. Will and Lunamaria dash ahead with perfect balance, their glasses steady. Despite the pace, they arrive just in moment, shocking Vandal as Will announces their success with a grin. Vandal is astonished, unable to believe Lunamaria rushed the entire way alongside Will. Skeptical, he orders to view the liquid, assuming the glasses must be empty after that a sprint. To everyone's amazement, the contents are immobile, solid, untouched, and unspilled. While several question the method, the senior god laughs and states it's perfectly valid. Will evenly states he remembered Frosted Dragon, applying the same trick to freeze the liquid. Thowell arrived in moment. He hadn't handed over the cup, however, and only moments remained. Without delay, he made his final step, presenting the glasses with steady palms. The surface of the liquid shimmered, still perfectly intact. Not in one speck spilled. Senior god grabbed a sip and smiled in satisfaction, declaring it excellent. With pride, they announced Will and Lunamaria had successfully cleared the initial test jointly. Just as the celebration started, Ronin, the god of swords, announced his test was following. The senior god, after some playful, activated the ritual readied for the following task. A mighty sorcery circle emerged beneath them, signaling the start of a new ordeal. Their moment test was clear: defeat Ronin's enormous stone training golem in combat.
A colossal training golem bursts forth from the wall, summoned by pair grinning men eager to judge Will's strength. Nearby, his companions exchange opinions. Single mocks the situation while the other observes the straightforward nature of the task. Confident and composed, Will expresses optimism, convinced they can handle anything awaits. Abruptly, a requirement is set: he must combat the golem using only a sword. Instead than hesitate, Will accepts the limitation, doubting it will affect the outcome. A man declares that only the cleric there has the might to face the looming danger, catching her completely off guard. Will, startled, is questioned. He's barred from fighting, and attention shifts to evaluating the priestess's potential. Skepticism arises about her ability, but her steady face hides no dread. Without delay, she reveals a concealed sword, asserting her duty includes armament training. Moved, the man relents, signaling acceptance of her willingness without further task. The cleric is reminded she can flee, but doing so would forfeit the test meant to prove her strength and loyalty. With resolve, she lunges ahead, vowing to face the test without holding back. Will hesitates, wanting to assist her, but she strides on with certainty, creating him behind. Resolute, she declares her aim to succeed, using attention from the observers. At the signal, the golem charges as the cleric steps into combat. The golem launches a mighty strike, smashing the ground as the cleric swiftly evades the impact without losing her concentration. Relying on sharpened learning to detect the golem's movements and stay one step forward. However, she knows that dodging solo won't be enough to clear the test, and begins preparing for a counterattack. In a burst of speed, she closes the gap, leaping openly toward the colossal foe without delay. However, as her sword lands, she understands the golem's frame is too solid. The golem charges with devastating energy, smashing everything in its choice as debris erupts from the ground. Lunamaria stays light on her feet, dodging attacks while re-evaluating her strategy with a determined stare. Repeated blows show no effect, creating both spectators and Lunamaria herself questioning what much she can do. Meanwhile, the mage behind the judge admits to pouring excessive mana into the golem. Even with her magical holy sword, Lunamaria discovers herself unable to sever the golem's joints. Will considers an alternative approach, thinking she might gain strength through outside assist if direct attacks aren't enough. He begins casting a magic from afar, seeking to empower Lunamaria and turn the tide of combat. Before the sorcery can be completed, he's halted by the Ronin, who steps in with fierce authority. Strict rules are reinforced: no buffs, no debuffs, only remarks of encouragement are allowed. Stripped of options, Will shouts her identity with conviction, igniting her determination to press on. Frustrated, Will punches the ground and asks his helplessness, convinced the golem must have a weak point. He calls out to Vandal, driven by desperation as Lunamaria struggles to gain the upper grip. A memory surfaces, his younger self formally asking about golems, unaware how vital that lesson would become. Vandal had taught that golems were formed from various materials and animated through sorcery. The key detail returns: the activation word, carved into their bodies, marks their weak spot. Will recalls his master's lesson about golems. The word engraved into their frame holds their living energy, and destroying part of it disables them. He states the test rules, realizing he can still assist indirectly without breaking them. Using analysis sorcery, he locates the mana flow and pinpoints the sorcery word embedded in the golem. Will shouts clear instructions to Lunamaria, telling her when and where to strike. Trusting his guidance, she attacks with precision, aiming for the weak point. Lunamaria is momentarily caught by the golem, its enormous grip pinning her down as the combat intensifies. Despite the impact, she swiftly recovers, flipping back with clear control and preparing for the finishing step. With Will's cue, she times her strike perfectly, aiming openly at the engraved sorcery word. Her sword connects with precision, cracking the golem's surface and triggering a chain of internal collapse. As the construct crumbles in a thunderous crash, both Will and Lunamaria celebrate their hard-won victory. The Ronin commends Lunamaria's swordplay, acknowledging her attempts even though the golem had been unusually durable. Privately, he reveals that his actual goal was to judge their ability to cooperate. Through their movements, he learns that Will can adapt in combat and that Lunamaria places full trust in him. She joyfully leaps into Will's arms, proud of her success, while everyone respond with playful jealousy. Embarrassed by the scene, they apologize awkwardly. Their bond silently strengthened through the test. The Ronin praises their teamwork and declares the moment test completed successfully. With only one test remaining, anticipation builds while a new person steps ahead, taking command. Grinning with aim, she contemplates the final task as dragons soar in the heavens. Under a gentle night heavens, Will and the girl rested near a little campfire, surrounded by snowy mountains. As the fire crackled, Will stirred a pot of soup while she seemed silently beside him. He offered her a bowl of the finished soup, and she accepted it with steady gratitude. They explained a meal, and Will replied about his cooking habits. She maintained on cooking following moment, showing her own skills as a cleric capable of self-sufficiency. Will mentioned the need for rest, knowing tomorrow they would face the final testing grounds. Danger lurked forward, especially since the dragons were active at night. Abruptly, an unknown woman emerged, preparing an unexpected task for the duo. Without caution, a command was sacrificed. She ordered them to kiss instantly. Everyone reacted with disbelief, questioning the bizarre nature of the test as disorder erupted around them. Will remained immobile as Lunamaria approached, her face hesitant and flushed with feeling. Before the scene escalated, a guardian person intervened, striking the goddess for her absurd demand. Reluctantly, she reconsidered her task after force from the everyone, lamenting her fated charm. Pair of the observers exchanged wide-eyed glances, astonished by what they had just heard. Overwhelmed by the realization of aging, the goddess collapsed, murmuring the bitter fact to herself. Will accepted the following test without delay, tasked with retrieving herbs for Miria. However, their joy swiftly faded from learning the herbs grew only within the perilous dragon's lair. The mission demanded a rare flower, the holy orchid, to be delivered by the following day. Unshaken, Will decided, and Lunamaria remained beside him, both prepared to face the task. Without delay, they departed across the hills, resolve pushing them toward the perilous task forward. Before dawn broke, Will awoke from his sleep, mentally preparing for the day forward. He and Lunamaria journeyed toward the peak cave, sharing a gentle breakfast before entering its mouth. Within they explored the rocky choice, cautiously watching the size and echo of the cavern. Will believed they were close, recalling advice about a higher entrance used by the dragons. As they climbed, he cautioned her about shifting dragon activity and the beast's unpredictable nature. Will and Lunamaria moved far into the peak, believing the lair was safe and unoccupied. Despite their search, no holy orchid was discovered, forcing them to consider exploring further. Just as hope dimmed, a floral scent triggered alarm, and an abrupt danger emerged from above. An enormous blue dragon emerged, roaring as it covered the cavern with its closeness. The creature attacked without delay, shattering the ground as Will leapt into combat and blast. Debris rained from above. As Will looked in terror, Lunamaria barely shielded herself in moment. She swiftly reassured him she was safe, while the dragon shifted its stare toward her. In an abrupt dive, the creature lunged, forcing Lunamaria to draw her staff in defense. Will moved ahead, gaze fixed on the creature, preparing to strike with fierce determination. With danger close, he chanted a blessing, prepared to shield her with a protective barrier. Lunamaria shouted for Will to stop, realizing the holy orchid was nearby and at risk. Ignoring the caution, Will dashed ahead with incredible speed, aiming to confront the danger head-on. His fist struck the cliff with a powerful blow, rattling the cavern and alarming Lunamaria. Amid rolling dust and falling stone, he drew his sword, face determined and unshaken. With an ordering tone, Will confronted the blue dragon, cautioning it to depart the holy peak. With the dragon gone, Will landed safely while Lunamaria hurried to his next, relieved. He reassured her with a steady face, showing he was uninjured. Curious about the orchid, she confirmed the scent and suggested they investigate the area. Both spotted the shining flower nestled in the ground. It was the rare holy orchid. Though only single bloomed, its radiant state formed the discovery all the much meaningful. With the holy orchid secured, Will confidently stated their success in passing the test. Jointly, they gripped the flower with joy, proud of what they accomplished as a team. Knowing danger still lingered, they decided to depart the lair quickly before second dragon returned. They exited the cavern safely, bathed in daylight and peak area formerly much. While Will praised Lunamaria's discovery, she maintained his bravery, formed him worthy of being named a dragon slayer. Will and Lunamaria readied to return, hopeful to receive the goddess's blessing with the orchid in grip. Their choice was interrupted by the abrupt approach of a majestic stag. Lunamaria recognized the animal Will's partner, Max, who had come with an urgent caution. Through their bond, Will heard as Max exposed something troubling. Realization struck him hard. Mother Miria had set them up, and the test gripped a hidden twist. Will understood the test wasn't over, and both he and Lunamaria remained alert again. Realization struck as Will and the girl unraveled Miria's actual intention. Without caution, Will shifted back, prompting the girl to watch him closely. A rustling breeze swept through the trees as tension covered the area. Lost and believed, Will analyzed the situation, each step deliberate. A deeper fact emerged: Max's daughter had fallen ill. Only single solution remained. The girl identified the rare holy orchid, discovered in a perilous dragon's lair, as the key to saving the newborn's living. Will wondered Max about the holy orchid's source. A quiet nod confirmed Miria's guidance. The girl lowered her stare, realizing something deeper was at play as she addressed Will. Miria's intentions were clear currently. She had planned this test knowing Max's situation from the beginning. Faced with a decision, Will checked the urgency of Max's need. They remained at a crossroads: return empty-handed and fail, or give the flower to Max and face the dragon's lair anew for second. Faced with urgency, Will remained beneath the glaring sun, determined to move before moments slipped back. Elsewhere, a gentle corner of the dwelling held signs of routine: liquid in a wooden bucket, untouched. In a sunlit room, a woman swept diligently, each motion reflecting steady and care. Palms wrung out cloth soaked with effort, the day's cleaning still in motion. Glancing up, she teased herself, noting how motherly she'd become despite her warrior's past. Annoyed by his dirt-covered appearance, the woman scolded the man, forcing him to stay outside the house. While rummaging through Will's things, the man joked about uncovering teenage secrets, though he doubted they emerged. His playful earned him a swift punishment. She struck without delay, ignoring his protests. Despite Will meeting a difficult test, single woman remained smug, confident in the outcome. Ronan, unfazed, confirmed his belief defeating a dragon was effortless for others like Will. Tension rose as Ronan demanded answers from Miria, sensing a hidden layer to her test. Miria evenly explained the doe's situation, insisting the orchid was truly needed. However, her smirk exposed much. Though the flower was accessible, the deeper they searched, the greater the danger from lurking dragons. Miria accepted the moment limit would prevent Will from going too far, especially with companions beside him. On the upper levels, only a single orchid could be found, just enough for one living. Miria seemed with a sly grin, convinced Will's kindness would compel him to give up the orchid. As she readied the room, she faltered to notice his gentle aim. Their debate surged. She accused him of underestimating Will, while he maintained allowing leave would make Will stronger. Elsewhere, Will remained tall. With determination in his gaze, he was prepared to travel his own choice. Despite the cost, Lunamaria decided. A companion in need couldn't be ignored. Her orchid would leave to Max. Moment was slipping back. The trial's outcome grew uncertain. However, Will voiced gentle gratitude. Determined, he tore ahead, deciding to descend solo into the lair's perilous depths. The deeper he went, the much hope he held of finding the orchids that could protect a living. Lunamaria refused to reveal him leave solo. Despite the risk, she maintained on following him. With certainty, she reminded Will it was her detect that had found the initial orchid. She could do it again. Will secured the orchid pouch tightly onto Max's chest, grinning as he readied the buck for departure. Heard Max's wounded legs and gently maintained the father prioritize his daughter instead of rushing again. He requested for single thing in return: view them again, safe and well. The buck dashed back. They looked, knowing it was eventually their moment to move. Without delay, Will lifted Lunamaria in his arms, prepared to face the depths of the lair jointly. Lunamaria gasped, startled and flustered in Will's arms as they dashed forward. Will evenly explained their method. Riding the wind would get them there faster, if she just gripped on. Next by next, they exchanged a nod of resolve. Jointly they were prepared to finish what they started. Their speed surged. With a cry, Will launched ahead into the lair. Back dwelling, Miria looked the heavens fondly, preparing something warm for their return, pride hidden behind a gentle grin. Will and Lunamaria emerged victorious, having cleared the test through strength, courage and compassion. Miria waited near the entrance, casually drinking, while everyone detected the moment for Will's return was near. Her thoughts, however, were blurred with feeling. Solo outside, Miria rested silently. Though everyone answered evenly, she couldn't skin her sadness. Will's departure still lingered in her chest. The senior accepted the fact Will could not remain sheltered. He was meant to fly free. A single step crushed the quiet. Others had returned. Will remained grinning, beside a girl, flowers in grip. "I'm back," he stated. Warm sunlight and a falling leaf greeted Will's return. A gentle tone welcomed him dwelling. His father praised his strength, moved by his growth. The girl beside him offered holy orchids with a bright grin. Abruptly, Miria rushed in and tackled Will with a mighty hug, catching all off guard. Will blushed as she clung to him. Worry covered her stare, though she masked it with asks. With soft reassurance, Miria smiled. The tension faded as joy returned in their feelings. Will heard as the girl explained she had treated the wounded doe. Relief brightened his face. Meanwhile, a senior gently pressed Miria, suggesting she was hiding something important. The fact emerged: Will had retrieved holy orchids from a dragon's lair, a feat that left even Miria astonished. Realization struck. He had passed the third test, and joy sparked in his companion's gaze. Above them, a familiar eagle soared. Will saluted. "Father Reese," he named, chest full. From above, the sacred eagle answered, affirming it had seen every scene of Will's trials. A major choice was announced: Will would leave in 10 days, on the day he turns 15. Miria, ever poised, questioned Will and his partner to wash up. A feast waited them at dwelling. Despite her poise, whispers exposed her cooking's odd taste, herbs ruining even the aroma. Still, Will didn't thoughts. With a confident grin, the man assured them he'd also readied food, asking Will to simply rest. Lunamaria's gaze sparkled with joy as she replied with determination. All gathered to eat, drink, and share stories, cherishing the quiet scene. As the meal ended, fatigue set in. Will seemed out at the moonlit heavens, reflecting, while Miria rested silently. The following morning, Will trained with Father Ronan. In the library, second mentor encouraged Will to sharpen his thoughts. Wisdom would soon matter as much as strength. Will requested for book recommendations, but soon panicked under the immense stack handed to him. With a steady grin, Father Vandal offered wisdom instead of apology. Learning was about discernment, not volume. Will enjoyed a gentle bath under the stars, eventually allowing himself to relax. Unexpectedly, Miria appeared, announcing her aim to aid him wash, her manner both playful and bold. Will flailed in surprise, insisting he was nearly an adult. Miria only smiled, playful his reaction gently. He shyly credited her handmade shampoo and endless cosmetic advice. With a gentle grin, she urged him to take care of himself. Formally his voyage started. He nodded. She reminded him that their peak would always be his dwelling, no matter how distant he traveled. Later, Will spent moment with friends and Lunamaria, exploring the land he had grown up in. Jointly they enjoyed the forest, fruits, rivers and breeze, each scene deepening their love for the peak. Will and Lunamaria spent their final day surrounded by forest creatures, saying their gentle goodbyes. 10 days after his test, Will remained before his guardians, readied and determined. On his 15th birthday, Will received blessings from those who lifted him. With certainty and a grin, he departed to discover the realm outside the peak. The sunlight pierced through the forest canopy as Will named out to Lunamaria. Walking beside her, he said to simply following her begin since they left the peak. Lunamaria exposed it was her initial moment descending as well, but confirmed their destination had purpose. She explained they were still in the forest surrounding the sacred peak. Their goal lay forward at the edge of the kingdom's forest, where the Earth Mother's guidance waited them, the holy sword. Will grew excited from seeing the legendary sword embedded far within a forest boulder, just as he had read in old tales. Lunamaria confirmed the legend: only the sword hero could draw it. She believed their voyage was directed by sacred aim. As they further, Lunamaria suggested Will might be fated to wield the holy sword. Realizing the road was long, they decided to rest in a nearby village before continuing onward. Will stated he'd only just met humans, but remained eager as they traveled north through remote paths. He confidently gathered food along the way, boasting his survival skills as Lunamaria emerged behind. Nearby, a youthful girl sat peacefully by the lake, fishing solo with a carefree grin. Abruptly, rustling bushes startled her, prompting a wary look and steady grip on her rod. In a terror, she shouted fiercely into the trees, prepared to defend herself from any danger. The youthful girl stiffened in amazement, realizing actual people had appeared before her deep in the woods. Relieved, she laughed nervously and stated they had startled her while she was peacefully fishing. They rested jointly by the lake, sharing stories. She voiced surprise at meeting everyone in that remote place. With a cheerful manner, she explained her mission, to task the lake's ruler for her sword hero. Standing proudly, she stated herself a loyal servant of the legendary sword hero, full of conviction. The girl remained immobile in disbelief, astonished by the abrupt appearance of strangers approaching her fishing spot. Laughter swiftly appeared her amazement as she relaxed, realizing they meant no harm. They sat jointly near the liquid, sharing introductions and startled to meet others so deep in the forest. With bright enthusiasm, she explained her mission, to defeat the lake's king in honor of her hero. Full of pride, she bravely stated herself a devoted servant of the legendary sword hero. Will heard intently, expressing interest in meeting the legendary sword hero spoken of with that loyalty. The girl explained the hero wasn't there, but was waiting for her at the forest's edge. Despite being solo, she remained confident, trusted by her hero to handle the mission independently. Determined, she cast her line, resolved to fulfill the expectations placed from her. Abruptly, the liquid erupted. Something enormous had taken the bait. An abrupt tug confirmed that this immense strength could only belong to the lake's legendary ruler. From the liquid burst an enormous fish, its size stunning all who looked. Will and the girl seemed on in wonder. The creature Koitaro dwarfed them both. Despite warnings, she held tight to the rod, rejecting to revealed leave. Her resolve was short-lived as the creature flung her high into the area. As the girl was dragged nearer to the liquid, terror gripped her. She feared she'd be swallowed whole. Desperately clinging to hope, she cried out for the sword hero to protect her. At that scene, Will dashed ahead with resolve, leaping into action without delay. In a blink, he caught her midair, gently lifting her from danger as she marveled at him. Overwhelmed, she burst into grateful tears, shouting a heartfelt thank you. Lynx, flustered but honest, voiced her intent to repay Will. She examined her broken rod and understood her attempt to catch Koitaro had truly faltered, the fish's size distant too great. With a sigh, she accepted defeat, choosing to return to the hero but welcomed Will and Lunamaria's offer to accompany her. Formal introductions emerged. Lynx exposed her identity. As they traveled jointly beneath the forest canopy, Lynx confirmed her role proudly, now calling herself a servant of Lord Will. A woman rushes toward a youthful warrior, alarmed by danger. A goblin charges, armament lifted, but the youth reacts swiftly. Much goblins appear, enraged by their fallen comrade. They surround the area, snarling and prepared to attack. Nearby, a group of girls cheer passionately, praising the hero and urging him to defeat the goblins. Standing tall, the hero remains composed, mocking the goblins' ignorance of his strength. He faces the advancing horde evenly, declaring they won't depart alive. The warrior moved ahead with certainty, using his sword and declaring himself the sword hero. Excited cheers rose from behind as he faced the danger openly. His closeness solo shifted the battleground, raising expectations of unequaled strength as he readied to unleash his might. Levine, the sword hero, remained fearlessly before a horde of monsters, her sword drawn with unwavering certainty. Will arrived at the scene with his partner, startled to witness Levine's willingness and resolve. From the sidelines, a group of girls cheered loudly, their excitement echoing through the battleground. Will hurried toward a familiar person, Lynx, relieved to find them safe after the encounter. Reunited, Lynx smiled brightly, eager to share what they had just witnessed with wide-eyed enthusiasm. Will introduced Levine, the sword hero. He appeared, describing him as a steady however elegant young warrior. Single of the girls eagerly praised Levine's unequaled swordsmanship, claiming his sword could slice through stone with ease. Levine, undisturbed by the enemy's numbers, moved ahead and readied to retaliate for the interruption. Cheers from a devoted group surrounded him, while Will silently accepted Levine's reputation. Poised and prepared, Levine taunted his foes, confronting them to strike initial. Charging ahead, Levine released a sweeping attack that astonished the goblin forces around him. One goblin dared to face him openly, raising its sword with trembling palms. With swift, fluid blows, Levine cut through enemies, outpacing their reactions with ease. Observers seemed in wonder as goblins fell rapidly, overwhelmed by his unrelenting assault. Amidst the disorder, Levine's face shifted surprise, replacing certainty as something unexpected caught his eye. Will observed Levine's technique closely. Although flawless, something about it sensed unsettling. Despite the elegant movements, an uneasy sensation grew stronger within Will as he seemed. Abruptly, goblins launched a barrage of shafts, forcing Levine into a defensive stance. He swiftly deflected the projectiles, shouting with frustration as enemies pressed in. Goblins swarmed him from every around, grappling onto his limbs and disrupting his rhythm. As Levine grabbed a direct hit, a tone cried out his identity. From the trees, hidden archers further to flame relentlessly. Before the following arrow could land, Will moved in, deflecting it in a swift motion that astonished Levine. Their gaze met. Levine was speechless, while Will remained steady, focused entirely on the danger forward. Jointly, they touched back to back, seamlessly fending off incoming attacks as watchers looked in disbelief. But the scene passed swiftly. Levine shifted his sword toward Will. Will introduced himself nervously, claiming he had only emerged links, while Levine wondered his intentions. Startled by Will's bold claim to defend him, Levine hesitated but allowed it temporarily. Their teamwork faltered as Levine charged forward, irritated by Will's closeness. Watching closely, Will understood Levine's sword style lacked awareness of rear attacks. Seizing the opportunity, Will struck swiftly from behind, eliminating threats that slipped past Levine's guard. Will's fluid, unpredictable sword movements caught every off-guard, including Levine, who could hardly believe what he viewed. Spectators murmured in disbelief as Will's closeness stirred both admiration and irritation among the crowd. Several started to recognize his strength, praising not just his swordsmanship but his sorcery as well, cheering for his swift victories. While the goblins panicked, Levine fumed internally, annoyed by Will's abrupt interference and unexpected dominance. As disorder unfolded, a colossal goblin approached Levine from behind. As Will further carving through enemies, Levine remained still, overwhelmed by the boy's sheer speed and efficiency. Spectators misread the scene, assuming Levine had struck the goblin down in an instant, praising their supposed hero's quick action. Seizing the praise, Levine lifted her sword high, basking in attention while hiding her uncertainty beneath a proud grin. But uncertainty crept in. Her grin cracked as disbelief returned in. What she had just witnessed sensed distant outside her skill. Will's technique had exposed something frightening. Levine gazed at Will in disbelief. Despite being younger, he displayed abilities she couldn't partner, abilities she couldn't even attempt. As Will traveled evenly across the battleground, the goblins shook, backing back without a fight. Surrounded by enemies, Will proceeded with certainty. She shouted in frustration as the goblins started retreating, unwilling to face them any longer. Later, as Luna introduced Will and Luna Maria to the group, Levine forced a grin, masking her annoyance behind formal praise. Lynx apologized silently, describing she faltered to catch the giant Koitaro during her task. Dismissed her with a clear comment, calling her useless, though Lynx exposed Will had rescued her from danger. Learning this, Will challenged Levine, angered that she ignored Lynx's near-death experience. She supporters reacted defensively, accusing Will of disrespecting their hero, but Single Girl bravely defended his remarks. Gaze narrowing, Levine drew her sword, no longer hiding her irritation. Levine pointed her sword at Will, demanding a duel to settle their rising tension openly. A blonde warrior stands before Will and challenges him to a duel, declaring the start of a combat with the sword hero. Will listens, steady however determined. Without delay, Will accepts the partner. His gaze reflects unwavering determination as he prepares for combat. Just before the fight begins, Luna Maria rushes over and stops Will. She urgently pulls him aside to speak with him. She warns him of the opponent's strength, but Will remains confident, telling her that he was trained by the sword god. Nearby, everyone observed cautiously, concerned that an easy win might provoke life trouble from the prideful sword hero. Although he considers declining the task, the sword hero's resolve overrides his concerns, and he strongly decides to approve the duel. As Will walks back with certainty, he reassures Luna Maria that he has a strategy. Behind him, the impatient sword hero orders an answer. Using his sword, Will eventually declares his acceptance. He's eager to face the task and uncover the fact behind his opponent's strength. Tension rises as the sword hero mocks Will. However, an unshakable detective unease about his closeness starts to grow. Without delay, the sword hero charges. Will meets the attack head-on, and the duel erupts into motion. The sword hero launched a fierce overhead strike, forcing Will to respond swiftly under force. A devastating blow shattered the ground between them, but Will dodged in moment, keeping distance while analyzing his opponent's movements. Despite the speed of the attack, Will barely avoided a direct hit, staying agile under the barrage. With quick reflexes, he blocked a mighty swing, startling the sword hero, who underestimated Will's strength. Spectators looked in wonder as the sword hero released a rapid flurry of blows, testing Will's defenses with relentless energy. Luna Maria reassures everyone with a steady grin, trusting in Will's strength and determination even amid the disorder. As the combat continues, Will begins to read the rhythm of the fight, gradually adapting to his opponent's technique. Flashes of his early training surface memories of Father Ronan's harsh but formative lessons come to thoughts, sharpening his concentration. During those days, Will struggled with distraction, often scolded for not fully committing to the sword despite his effort. Currently, the meaning of actual conflict echoes in his thoughts. Battles are not only tests of strength, but of unwavering conviction. Father Ronan's mighty strike swept past Will during training, delivering not just energy, but insight. In his stern tone, Ronan drilled the essence of combat into Will, to fight with purpose, to wield every feeling and promise as strength. Later, Will collapsed in exhaustion, overwhelmed by the fight. However, despite trembling limbs, he sensed a deeper understanding of his opponent's aim through the sword's edge. He could detect the sword hero's rising frustration and emotional storm masked behind clear movements and aggression. Confusion consumed the sword hero as his flawless techniques were read and countered. Will's piercing stare unsettled him, not because of strength but because it laid bare each uncertainty in his soul. A mighty blow sent Will crashing into the ground, dust rising as the sword hero readied to end the partner. However, despite heavy breaths and scratches, Will remained anew. The sword hero, recognizing the effort, stated defeat with gentle dignity. Reflecting on his movements, the sword hero confessed to being overwhelmed by feeling earlier, particularly during the goblin skirmish that blurred his judgment. Meanwhile, observers praised the outcome, believing it a victory for the hero. Most remained unaware of Will's subtle control throughout the fight. Internally, Will recalled lessons from his mentors. The duel had been like a judge of strategy mirroring a chess game. An abrupt alert from the sword hero disrupted the group's rest. Goblins approached their camp, forcing them to remain on guard. With clear disdain for their current location, the sword hero demanded the camp be touched, unwilling to sleep among the slain creatures. Orders were swiftly issued, and the team sprang into motion. Meanwhile, Will was requested about his following step. His thoughts previously set, he exposed his strategy to head toward the northern border in search of a holy sword. With farewells exchanged, he and his companions readied to part ways. A steady handshake marked the end of their encounter. Mutual respect lingered in their remarks as they wished each different well. Nightfall blanketed the camp as the group returned down in a clearing, the tent pitched under a heavens full of stars. Single of the girls cheerfully announced that dinner was prepared. The meal, a hearty hot pot with dried meat and wild herbs, was served alongside grilled cheese skewers. The sword hero's face eased at the vision of the food, visibly moved by how appetizing it looked. Jokingly, he requested the girls to feed him as a reward for the day's attempts. Laughing, they indulged him, playful that he was acting spoiled. Laughter further as the girls playfully competed for the chance to be the initial to serve him. With laughter and certainty, the sword hero allowed himself to be pampered, declaring he'd depart everything to his companions for the night. However, rest eluded the hero. Under the gentle night heavens, he wandered solo through the forest, deep in thought, his steps heavy with unease. Despite his cheerful remarks earlier, sorrow ran deep, his palms were still numb, and he couldn't even grip a spoon. Thoughts of Will tormented him. Others who could use sword flash with that mastery had emerged out of nowhere. Seeking solitude, the sword hero bathed beneath the stars, allowing the cool liquid ease his aching frame. Moonlight shimmered across the liquid as the sword hero bathed in quiet, the forest surrounding her shining gently with falling petals. A sign on her chest, the sword stigmata, glowed faintly. It was proof of her identity, not just a warrior, but the fated sword heroine. Memories of tragedy rose. Her father died disobeying command, and her mother's noble house was destroyed. To restore her family's honor, she cast aside her womanhood, choosing to live as a man beneath the weight of the sword. However, beneath her strength lay dread and self-uncertainty, a girl burdened by expectations she no longer believed she could fulfill. Still soaking in the liquid, the sword heroine gazed upward, her face steady however pensive under the moonlight. Thoughts of Will stirred in her thoughts. If he truly sought the holy sword, then perhaps his voyage held much meaning than she initially assumed. Reaching toward the shining moon, she wondered her own limits, wondering if she too could become stronger by claiming that same might. Elsewhere, footsteps pressed into fresh grass as morning approached, marking the continuation of a fresh voyage. From a hilltop, Will remained with Luna Maria, prepared to face what lay outside the horizon. Will and his companions started their voyage along the Peak Choice, heading northward toward the town of Northwood and new challenges. Will stands before a vast open road, learning it's the way to Northwood. The choice stretches distant, unfamiliar and exciting. He reflects on how fresh this is to him. Lifted in the mountains, roads like this never emerged, only animal trails and narrow passes. As they clear through a village, Will marvels at its charm. He's startled by how developed the road is, something he's never seen before. Luna Maria observes the worn choice, pointing out signs of trade and traffic. The road shows marks from wheels and hooves. A carriage appears from the direction of Northwood, kicking up dust. Will watches as it speeds past, suggesting it much to come. Without caution, the carriage sped dangerously close. Will instantly lunged ahead, pulling Luna Maria out of harm's way. The vehicle raced past them, splashing liquid as it narrowly missed. Luna Maria's face stiffened in amazement as she understood what nearly happened. As the dust returned, Will and everyone looked the carriage vanish in the distance. Through its window, he heard a girl within signaling for aid. Recalling the glimpse of the covered wagon, Will mentioned the strange closeness of perilous individuals within. The group decided to investigate. Receiving Luna Maria's quiet approval, Will readied himself to leave. She nodded strongly, trusting his judgment without delay. Luna Maria encouraged Will to trust his instincts. Her steady remarks gave him the determination to move without delay. After asking her to stay behind and look after their belongings, Will shifted his concentration toward the carriage that had previously vanished from vision. Fueled by urgency, he launched himself into the area with mighty strength, gaze fixed on the choice forward. While soaring above the trees, Will scanned the terrain and swiftly spotted the vehicle veering off the road and into the forest. Without delay, he adjusted his course and dove toward the woods, determined to catch up before it was too late. Within the carriage, a frightened girl shook as the vehicle thundered through the forest. She cried for aid, her tone barely heard. Abruptly, the door burst open with energy. The captors were caught off guard as terror surged among them. Single of the men recognized the girl, linking her to the Anaheim steady. His face shifted hostile as he moved ahead. He moved out evenly, saying she had to come with them. His manner remained cold, treating the situation like routine work. Before he could move, a flash above the carriage drew everyone's attention. Alarm replaced certainty, as something unexpected arrived. Landing atop the moving carriage, Will confirmed his choice. Approaching from the area had proven to be the correct step. He wasted no moment confronting the enemies. The startled thug demanded answers, but Will evenly stated he had flown there. With a single blow, Will sent the man flying out of the carriage, neutralizing him before he could respond further. Entering swiftly through the window, Will discovered the frightened girl within. She seemed at him with disbelief. Introducing himself, Will reassured her. He had come to rescue her, just as she had hoped others would. Karen confirmed that the attackers from the previous wagon were chasing her. Dread lingered in her gaze as she recalled the danger. In desperation, she exposed her identity. As the daughter of the Anaheim household, she had been ambushed in mission and forced to flee. Will gently comforted her, reassuring her shelter currently that he was there. His steady demeanor helped ease her terror. Abruptly, glass shattered. A bolt from a crossbow struck through the carriage window, narrowly missing them both. The pair peered outside. From the broken glass, Will confirmed the danger was still nearby and watching. Assailants grew impatient as they searched. Despite strict orders to capture the girl alive, tension among them escalated. Within the carriage, Will and Karen stayed low. Single attacker demanded to board personally, prompting Will to consider his following step. Peeking through the window, Will assessed the foe. He started thinking of a way to separate and stop them. His gaze squinted from noticing the unconscious coachman. The horses had panicked due to the man's collapse. Realizing neither of them could steer, Will and Karen faced a fresh problem controlling a runaway carriage amid rising danger. Will exposed a strategy. On his flight earlier, he heard something forward that could shift the situation in their favor. Outside, the enemies readied to close in. Single of them shouted instructions, confident they were closing the distance. Before they could respond, Will kicked the door open and launched himself openly at them, catching them off guard. He spun mid-air and struck with precision. His attack disrupted their formation, scattering the riders. Currently mounted on a horse, Will took control, prepared to begin the charge and take back full control of the chase. Will speaks evenly to the horse, asking it to leave running for the shelter of its unconscious rider. The carriage races forward, its wheels thundering before the dirt road as it hurtles through the forest, pursued from behind. Within second wagon, mercenaries argue as the situation escalates. Will, watching from a distance, notes that their movements are happening exactly as he anticipated. From high above, Will surveys the choice. His scouting states the carriage's position and what lies forward on the peak trail. He spots a deadly cliff looming in the distance. Determined to prevent disaster, he swiftly devises a fresh tactic to intercept the carriage before it reaches the speck. Will deliberately slows his pace, baiting the chasing mercenaries to accelerate in order to close the gap. At the perfect scene, Will commands the horse to turn. The abrupt maneuver causes the carriage to veer sharply, destabilizing the chase and disrupting their formation near the cliff's edge. The mercenaries, unaware of the terrain, press ahead recklessly. Single of them abruptly notices the danger and shouts too late, pointing frantically at what lies forward. Their wagon crashes through the unstable ground. The horses and riders are flung into the area as the entire vehicle plunges over the cliff. From a safe distance, Will watches in quiet as the danger is eliminated. Will kneels beside the wounded man, using his healing sorcery to stabilize his requirement. A girl praises Will's incredible healing skills. Will humbly responds, crediting his mother Miria for teaching him. As Will turns back, the girl reflects on his kindness and strength. Her admiration deepens as she views him as her hero, grateful for his timely rescue. Later, the girl clings tightly to Will on the carriage bench, clearly smitten. They ride through the countryside jointly in quiet. Will suggests she sit within for comfort, but she insists on staying beside him. Her affection is obvious, while Will tries to skin his flustered reaction. As the carriage continues on its choice, Will spots a familiar person approaching. The woman's assertive energy instantly reminds him of his adoptive mother, Miria. The woman joyfully greets him. She is Luna Maria, a cleric of Mother Earth and Will's traveling partner. Karen, still clinging to Will, instantly asks her identity. To Karen's amazement, Luna Maria introduces herself as Will's fiancée. Karen, flustered but bold, claims Will as her fated husband. Luna Maria invites Karen to meet her father at a mansion, but Karen swiftly declines, saying they are in a hurry. Shifting the concentration, Luna Maria reminds every of their actual mission to find the holy sword hidden in the Northwood forest. Caught by surprise, Will and Luna Maria respond to Karen's abrupt insistence on her proposal. With a composed face, she reveals her background. Her family runs the Anaheim merchant house in Northwood. Claiming authority, Karen announces that the forest holding the holy sword falls under her household's ownership, forcing everyone to reconsider their approach. A carriage traveled along a gentle choice, its wheels clattering steadily as it brought its passengers toward their following destination. Within, two women joyfully answered about a nearby restaurant, praising its blueberry tart, and mood. Will smiled, listening to their excitement. As the voyage further, tension rose between the two girls. Both vying to be by Will's next, caught between them, Will silently wondered how he ended up in that situation. To restore order, Will strongly instructed them to sit at the back and view after the coachman, ending their argument. Stilled and frustrated, the pair girls sat silently, arms crossed, pouting in synchronized defeat. Urgent voices covered the carriage as the girls heard the coachman's worsening requirement. His frame shook, drenched in sweat, and his breathing grew heavy with fever. Will examined the situation evenly. Despite the injury, he confirmed there was no poison, but the man's strength was fading due to significant blood loss. Reaching into his supplies, Will handed a little item to Luna Maria, instructing her to administer it swiftly. After confirming it was a trusted medicine made with sacred knowledge, Luna Maria called for Karen's aid to start treatment. With grand care, the girls backed the coachman as he gradually swallowed the potion. His requirements started to stabilize under their watchful care. Luna Maria gazed at Will with admiration, moved by his steady composure and medical skill. Karen blushed, overwhelmed by the realization of his numerous talents. None of the girls connected his mother's identity to a mighty goddess from the mountains, creating them both in wonder. Sitting silently on the carriage, Will stated his past. Though he was merely a child taken in by the deities, he had been lifted by several sacred entities. Curious about their destination, Will requested about Northwood. The girls eagerly explained it was a walled city on the northern edge of the kingdom. Northwood, known for its thriving commerce, welcomed travelers of every races. Karen recalled her recent attack while traveling for business. Despite her escorts, the ambush arrived unexpectedly. She voiced far gratitude knowing Will had saved her. Will requested about the country's shelter. Luna Maria clarified that Madonia was generally gay and rarely viewed that incidents. Karen explained that attacks on women were uncommon due to frequent patrols and checkpoints, making her ambush every the much unusual. With honesty, she requested to accompany Will into the Holy Sword Forest, offering her assist in return for his aid. As Will lifted the legendary sword high, Karen looked with sparkling gaze,
believing this scene would be remembered in history. Luna Maria struggled with her thoughts, caught between her belief and her turning intent to be heard by Will instead of the cleric. Will recalled meeting Levine, the renowned sword hero. In the forest, uncertainty lingered. Could Levine truly be the single to draw the holy sword? Meanwhile, Karen checked on the coachman, relieved to view his complexion improving, a clear sign that the treatment had worked. Pleased with the progress, Will suggested continuing their voyage northward. At their current pace, they would reach the city by the following day. As the carriage arrived to a halt, Will moved out cautiously. Something forward caught his attention, and his face sharpened with concentration. A squad of mounted troops charged down the road, shouting for the carriage forward to stop instantly. Will reacted swiftly, pulling the reins with worry. The plated men dismounted and surrounded the area. Raising their weapons cautiously, their leader pointed ahead, signaling everyone to ready for confrontation. Will swiftly dropped from the carriage to assess the situation, prepared to defend if needed. Tension covered the area as he approached them openly. A distinguished man named Johann moved ahead, claiming the carriage belonged to the Anaheim Steady. Karen emerged, startled but relieved to view Johann. After confirming her shelter, he explained they had been searching for her since the attack report. Johann nearly struck Will in a fit of misunderstanding, believing him to be single of the attackers. After learning the fact, Johann's face eased. He offered his honest gratitude to Will and his companions for protecting Lady Karen during the ordeal. Karen maintained on inviting Will and everyone to her residence as a gesture of thanks, describing their voyage involved business at the Holy Sword Forest. Watching the state of their damaged carriage, Johann arranged for a replacement and offered an escort to ensure their safe journey forward. With a respectful farewell, Johann sent them off. Will, Luna Maria, and Karen resumed their voyage to Northwood with steady resolve and renewed purpose. As the carriages further toward their destination, a faraway scream pierced the steady. A single arm fell limp, signaling something had gone terribly wrong elsewhere. Distant back, Miria slumped over a table, overwhelmed with feeling. Despite her sacred status, she remained deeply affected by Will's absence. Zone of the deities used to comfort her, noting that Will's voyage should be progressing smoothly. He believed the youth would soon arrive in the city. The bearded senior smiled, confident that Will had been well ready to handle adversity. Back in the carriage, Luna Maria detected something unusual. She teased that a girl might be getting close to Will, just as Northwood arrived into view. While riding in the carriage, the group discussed Ryus's absence. None of them had seen him lately, but they remained unconcerned. As the carriage neared the city gates, they eventually arrived at Northwood, the place where the Holy Sword waited.
The city's colossal gate rose in quiet, its portcullis half lifted as sunlight touched the stone walls. Near the entrance, troops remained on alert, while a carriage rolled up the choice. Within, a wide-eyed youth gazed through the window, taking in the unfamiliar vision. Crossing the threshold, the carriage clattered over cobbled streets, entering the chest of the settlement. Northwood exposed itself as a bustling city, its roads alive with color and people. Will, moving out, took his initial breath of city area. Crowds covered each corner, voices overlapping. It was much noise and motion than he had ever known. Will heard carefully as the girl mentioned visiting her father initial, concerned for his harmony of thoughts. The city's bustle hadn't dulled her detective duty. She explained that her father was likely at the mansion on the town's outskirts. With a grin, she proposed they head there instead. Along the way, Will spotted a person in the crowd who appeared oddly familiar. The scene passed swiftly, creating him uncertain. Soon after, the mansion arrived into view, great and imposing, framed by clean stone and tall windows. A maid hurried out from their arrival. Will stopped briefly, then appeared the girl within without delay. From entering the mansion, staff greeted the girl with relief, informing her that her father waited her in the reception room. She nodded casually, brushing off her father's worry. Elsewhere, her return was announced to the master of the house. Startled by the word, he reacted with seen feeling. Moments later, the girl hurried through the door, only to be caught in an abrupt, tearful embrace from her overwhelmed father. He clung to her tightly, sobbing with exaggerated relief, while she struggled to stay upright beneath his grip. Will seemed the emotional scene in quiet. Introductions were about to start as attention shifted toward him and his companions. The man introduced himself as Victor Anaheim, owner of the Anaheim Company, and father of the girl named Karen. With a warm grin, he welcomed them and requested a full account of what had occurred. As all returned into the lounge, Victor heard intently. His face darkened from learning that the attackers had targeted his daughter. Attention shifted to Will, the youth from the mountains, as it was exposed he had thwarted the kidnapping attempt on his own. Victor stopped, then sipped his tea evenly before turning to Will with serious gaze. Without caution, he shouted a question demanding to know if Will could truly restore happiness to Karen. Karen abruptly stated her desire to marry Will, catching both him and her father off guard. Victor imagined the scene with intense joy, previously embracing the idea. Though startled, Victor shifted concentration to the saint accompanying Will, asking if she had any concerns about the story so distant. Confident in his judgment, Victor replied proudly of his success as a merchant, saying his ability to assess people's character accurately. He praised Will's abilities, acknowledging that only others pure of chest could have saved Karen. The saint's closeness, he said, was proof of Will's honesty and sacred ties. Overwhelmed by the trust placed in him, Will smiled gently, touched by the acceptance and belief shown by Victor. The saint reminded Victor that their visit wasn't just social, they had a purpose in town. Victor accepted their goal involved the holy sword, but encouraged them to rest. Will, mindful of the recent ordeal, decided to postpone their mission for currently. To show gratitude, the head maid assembled the servants and offered full hospitality. A bath had been readied for Will before dinner. He was led to an elegant bathing room. Karen, flustered, was redirected to second to avoid complications. Soaking in warm liquid, Will sensed the tension melt back. He reflected silently on his voyage, thinking of the deities who lifted him and wondering how they were doing. Steam rose as Luna Maria rinsed herself in the bath. Steady and composed, she touched with practiced ease, unfazed by her surroundings. Karen, sitting nearby, requested if she desired aid. Luna Maria declined, content with taking care of herself as she always had. Karen stated she'd grown used to traveling independently with Will. Her clear gaze, she claimed, heard much than everyone assumed. To her, bathing jointly symbolized far trust, something only explained between those truly close. As Luna Maria soaked silently, Karen watched her person with mixed thoughts, wondering just how far her bond with Will had progressed. Karen glanced at herself, noting her person with pride despite several self-conscious thoughts about indulging too much lately. Abruptly, she splashed liquid and stated a competitive task toward Luna Maria. Caught off guard, Luna Maria offered a gentle, confused response. Later, the pair moved out dressed officially. Will and Luna Maria were currently wearing elegant clothes readied by Victor, which fit perfectly. Will stated his nerves, but Luna Maria remained steady. To her, noble halls and ruins were equally unfamiliar. There was little difference in how she approached either. Flushed but honest, complimented Will's appearance. Her gentle remarks lingered, bringing a rare grin to Will's face. Karen twirled in her fresh dress, her gaze sparkling with excitement. She requested Will for his opinion, and his awkward but honest compliment formed her beam. Just outside the dining room, the head maid politely invited Will and Luna Maria to enter, the doors opening with ceremony. Within, the table was set with care. Victor welcomed them with a warm grin, asking if they were feeling rested. Chairs were dragged out as each guest was directed to their seats. Will was offered a prominent place beside Victor at the head of the table. While servants started pouring drinks, a cat-eared maid approached Will and offered him a glass. Suspicion sparked in her gaze as she gazed at the rolling liquid. Something sensed wrong. Victor lifted his glass, grinning as he offered a toast. The mood grew strained. Will remained abruptly, declaring the drink poisoned. Amazement surged through the room as he exposed the hidden danger at the table. Amazement washed over the man's face as he understood the sinister fact behind the drink. With steady palms, Will held the goblet while a girl collapsed nearby, using gasps from the watchers. Rising from his seat, he delivered a steady verdict. An attempted abduction emerged by deliberate poisoning thanks to years of training from his mother. Will had mastered the art of detecting and neutralizing toxins. By watching the drink's muddy texture, grape tint, and masking aroma, he swiftly determined the poison's exact nature. Single of the girl steps ahead, requesting Will's drink to investigate it herself. Second girl states the unusual detail, showing that both her drink and Karen's share the same odor as the wine served to the family head. Terror spreads across the room, with tension rising, suspicions narrow. Despite tight food and drink security, the source of the poison must be others within the building. Will clarifies that the poison isn't common. His mother, Miria, taught him about this rare substance, stated to originate from a hidden race. The revelation blows the group. Will names the origin as the Millennium Fox Tribe. Will evenly addresses the fox-eared maid, asking if she belongs to the Millennium Fox Tribe. His gaze concentration sharply, noting the unique features she tries to skin. The maid panics, denying any bond to the tribe and insisting it's a baseless accusation.
Second maid asks her openly, casting uncertainty. In desperation, she accuses Will of deceit, urging every to ignore his claims and trust her instead. Challenged to prove her innocence, she's forced to drink the poisoned wine. Her delay deepens suspicions. Before she can move, a man blows swiftly, neutralizing her. The fact is confirmed she was the culprit. As the maid's unconscious frame is brought back, asks arise. Rouvelaire asks how long she had served in the mansion. Will links the timing to the Gardo company's increasing aggression. Orders are sacrificed to extract any useful information from the captured servant. Banquet concludes awkwardly. Apologies are exchanged. Though the incident was handled, unease lingers in the area. Privately, single guest asks about the Gardo company, curious about its motives and role in the incident. They learn that Gardo is a rising energy in the region, swallowing rival firms to dominate trade. Its influence currently reaches even noble estates. The fact about Gardo begins to unfold. When rival businesses face setbacks, Gardo exploited their weakness to forcefully take over. Their methods were both cunning and ruthless. A map reveals their expanding territory in just a single year. They've seized control of the Northwest region. Meanwhile, Anaheim Company forms alliances to resist. Confirmation arrives Donier acted under Gardo's orders. The incident wasn't isolated. It was part of a larger scheme. Her defeat to kidnap Will led to threats before her family. Gardo used them as leverage to coerce her. Until currently, there had been no proof. The poisoning eventually exposes their underhanded tactics and cruelty. Determined to move, the head of the family declares they will use the faltered poisoning to expose the Gardo company's crimes. His daughter echoes his determination, energized by his leadership. Will offers assistance, but is politely questioned to stay uninvolved. This is a merchant matter, and Victor wishes to handle it personally, though he jokes about Will as a potential son-in-law. Victor shifts the topic, asking if Will seeks the Holy Sword in the Spirit Forest. Will states, although approval is granted, Victor expresses mild reluctance, caution it may be troublesome. His daughter reacts theatrically, shouting in exaggerated frustration at her father's behavior. A scene of levity breaks the tension as Karen scolds the group for playful Will, telling them he's their honored guest and benefactor. Victor reveals that technically no single needs approval to enter the Spirit Forest, but acknowledges that his family controls every forest due to their monopoly over the city's lumber industry. He states the Holy Sword was discovered by chance in single of their managed woods. Will suspects that Gardo's real goal might be domination of the lumber market. With a confident grin, Victor grants full approval to retrieve the sword. The group expresses gratitude. Curiosity arises, can Will truly draw the sword meant only for a hero? Even he isn't certain. Pair girls passionately declare their belief in Will, convinced he's fated to wield the Holy Sword. Victor and everyone observe with amusement. Despite Will's modesty, even the adults express certainty, citing his sacred upbringing as a sign of grand potential. As the day ends, Karen eagerly offers to escort Will to his room. Plans for tomorrow's voyage to the Spirit Forest are silently set. Abruptly, disorder erupts. A playful argument breaks out over who gets to stay close to Will. The matter is returned through a game. Under the moonlit heavens, Will reflects solo. Meanwhile, the pair girls sleep peacefully, having won the correct to stay by his next. In a fit of rage, Gardo demolishes furniture and screams at his subordinates. Their defeat to eliminate the Anaheim head pushes him to the edge. Fuming, he recounts his progress. Half of Northwood is previously under his control. Single much step was all he needed to seize might from the Anaheim company. Despite believing his plans were flawless, the attempt to poison and kidnap faltered. He lashes out, furious and humiliated. A hooded person reminds him of their assist. Gardo admits he still has one much strategy, vowing repayment. Formerly the city is his. From a hidden chest, he retrieves an unknown enchanted item, an expensive, sinister-looking artifact known as the Titanite. Under the full moon, a shining lantern lights the choice through the dense forest. A hooded person silently approaches, their movements careful and deliberate as they near a holy place. They stop before the Holy Sword. An unknown closeness perception their arrival, noting it has been ages since a mortal last appeared.
Will and his companions ventured far into the forest at dawn, determined to reach their destination by midday. Despite the long voyage, they pressed on steadily. As the unfamiliar terrain stretched on, concerns arose about their direction. However, the forest appeared to guide them instead than hinder. A sacred aura thickened the deeper they touched. Surrounded by gentle beauty, they felt the closeness of something mighty forward. The quiet mood reminded them of steady days, offering a rare scene of stillness. Their thoughts shifted to Karen, whose lively spirit contrasted with their steady, creating a vivid impression on them all. Although worry lingered over past troubles, Will and his group pressed on with cautious optimism. Their choice soon led them to a shining anomaly in the forest, emitting with sacred energy. Outside the trees, they discovered a holy clearing where a sword remained embedded in stone. The vision confirmed their hopes. The legendary holy sword was real and within reach. Will's chest raced with excitement, as if seeing a scene straight from the stories he formerly read. The voyage had led them exactly where they required to be. An abrupt encounter halted the group as a knight named Levine emerged, startling them with a bold entrance. Declaring herself the sword hero, Levine claimed the sacred armament as her rightful inheritance and demanded the group's departure. She explained that she had come solo, creating her servants behind near the city to handle things herself. Her attitude drew clear comments from the group, who wondered her motives and arrogance in seeking an audience. With rising tension, Levine lashed out and hurried toward the sword, shouting her claim with unwavering energy and pride. Levine smirked confidently, dismissing Will and the everyone as unworthy of approaching the holy sword. Rejecting to back down, Will evenly said he wasn't the sword hero, but maintained their closeness had a purpose. With turning suspicion, the girl wondered Levine's claim. If he had arrived earlier, why hadn't he drawn the sword previously? Legend said only the actual sword hero could retrieve the holy sword. Uncertainty fell on Levine, casting him as a potential fraud. Considering the sword had remained untouched for over a decade, the group started to suspect the qualifications for claiming it might lie elsewhere. Driven by resolve, Levine approached the holy sword and stated it his without delay. Confused and frustrated, Levine demanded answers. The sword replied again, showing he was lacking something vital. The revelation that the sword itself had spoken stirred wonder in the group. They knelt before the stone, realizing that this was no ordinary artifact but a sentient energy that chose its wielder. Introducing itself as Durandal, the holy sword addressed each of them. It recognized Levine as the sword hero, the girl as a cleric, and Will as a youthful man bearing sacred blessings. Despite Levine's certainty, Durandal explained he still couldn't be chosen. Will moved ahead, frustrated by the sword's earlier remarks. He never expected to succeed instantly, but being denied the chance to even try departed him irritated. Determined to view for himself, he approached the holy sword without delay, planting his foot confidently in front of the stone. With steady determination, Will grasped the hilt. Despite knowing the odds, he tightened his grip and offered it a pull, rejecting to back down. His full strength poured into the effort. The sword remained unmoved, as if fused to the earth itself. Those watching cried out in worry. Even with his might, the sword didn't budge. The sword's tone echoed again, caution that further effort would be futile. Frustrated and fired up, Will refused to give in. With clenched teeth and burning determination, he shouted his defiance and poured everything into a final attempt. A thunderous amazement tore through the area. Stone cracked and burst apart as Will's strength surged, stunning every around him. To everyone's disbelief, the sword lifted still embedded in a chunk of stone. Will gripped it in his grasp, wide-eyed and breathless. Amazement surged across the onlookers' faces. Levine gazed in disbelief, unable to comprehend how Will had uprooted the sword and the pedestal jointly. The sword remained bound to the stone, but Durandal itself was astonished. This was the initial moment that an event had occurred in its long history. Will apologized for his eruption, but the sword's tone reassured him. No single could have predicted that an outcome. Meanwhile, Levine, frustrated and pacing solo, still couldn't approve the outcome. The sword, however, exposed the reason Levine lacked the inner strength and experience necessary to wield it. The group discussed Levine's delay. They reflected on his arrogance and moments of uncertainty in combat, which the sword perceived as fatal flaws in an actual hero. Will and the everyone were caught off guard and thrown off balance as a quake shook the area near the sword. It addressed them officially sword hero and cleric of the Earth Mother, acknowledging their explained fate. A dark energy stirred beneath the earth. The sword detected danger rising and cautioned that destruction now touched toward a nearby city.
Terror spreads through the town as residents are hurried to shelter from the eastern forest. An ominous danger advances, causing confusion and dread. A captain urgently scans the horizon. A swarm of monstrous single-eyed giants, cyclops, bursts from the trees. The captain is astonished, recalling tales of ancient demon pawns he formerly believed were myth. Colossal above the trees, the cyclops march ahead relentlessly. Their expressions are fierce, and their numbers immense. Troops report an evacuation is complete, but the enemy's size and volume unsettle them. The cyclops loom nearer, blocking the sunlight. The captain rallies his forces. Archers take position. Infantry prepares to flank. The order is clear: defend the walls at every cost. Surrounded by colossal giants, the Northwood Guards contain their ground. Weapons prepared, resolve burns in their gaze. As they brace for impact, dread surges through the ranks when the Cyclops charge. Single soldier stabs at the foe, but the beast's size dwarfs him completely. An enormous foot crashes down, rattling the earth. Paratroops narrowly escape being crushed under the weight of the monster's stomp. Shouts echo as orders are barked. Archers ready their assault while panicked troops regroup and rally. Despite the barrage, the giants endure. Weapons and shafts barely scratch their thick skin. Retreat becomes the only option. An enormous trunk hurled through the area crashes with explosive energy into the earth, sending debris flying. The projectile smashes into the city wall, creating rubble and wounded troops in its path. Amazement spreads among the defenders. Second Cyclops lifts a moment trunk, preparing to strike again. Troops scramble for cover as the danger escalates. Abruptly, a ballista bolt tears through single of the giants, piercing its chest and halting its advance. The direct hit causes the Cyclops to stagger and collapse. Cheers erupt. The tide of combat eventually begins to shift. Even with a giant down, the captain remains wary. He knows the Cyclops can still launch enormous trees with ease, questioning how much moment they truly gained. Elsewhere, a mighty enchanted incantation is activated. A shining orb channels energy, as ancient remarks summon a magic of destruction. In an instant, a blazing fireball erupts and crashes into single of the giants. Fire engulfs its frame, halting its charge in step. Every gaze turn as a youthful woman wielding a staff appears. Her magic leaves troops astonished. No one expected that might from her. Shouting commands follow as troops charge ahead. The astonished Cyclops recoils, while defenders push back with renewed strength and resolve. A skilled warrior dodges an incoming strike and counters with precision. Though her attack lands cleanly, the giant's tough skin shrugs off the blow. Meanwhile, a wounded soldier is healed by an unknown girl in a hooded outfit. As his sorrow fades, confusion sets in. She simply flashes a gesture, and her partner steps ahead to answer. Evenly and confidently, the woman introduces them both as members of the Sword Heroes party. The captain relaxes slightly from learning this, but presses for the hero's location. With urgency rising, the captain rallies every, calling for unity between the guards and adventurers. As monsters close in, the girl Levine prepares herself. Distant outside the city, a tone echoes through the forest, calling out for Levine. Others searches the wilderness, unaware of the storm about to unfold. Abruptly, a youthful man rushes at astonishing speed, carrying an unconscious girl in his arms. Behind him, second person gives chase, struggling to leave up with his inhuman pace. As they land, worry fills the youthful man's face. He asks if Luna Maria is uninjured. Without delay, he asks the group to leave moving. The scene grows strained. He warns them that the seal protecting the land has been lifted. Ancient memories resurface. The seal, formerly placed during the era when deities still traveled among men, was tied to a devastating war. The ancient combat between deities and the demon lord is recalled. Single-eyed Cyclops, servants of darkness, were sealed beneath the land, their closeness marking scars from the earth. Tension rises as others suggest the seal was broken by forbidden means. But the fact is much unsettling. This wasn't done from outside, but something deeper within, realizing the city is in danger. Luna Maria asks an immediate return. Will listens in quiet, sensing urgency. He considers flying back solo. Levine offers her assist. Will weapons slightly thankful, but she interrupts. She refuses to reveal him face it solo. The silver-haired knight folds her arms, reluctantly agreeing to stay behind. Though annoyed, she acknowledges the urgency and Will's responsibility. Their priorities are matched: defend the wounded, return swiftly. Will evenly prepares. He decides to use a familiar method, one from his training, startling Luna Maria with his gentle certainty. Though wondered about his stamina, Will reassures them. He's accustomed to moving through forests and has done this before. With Luna Maria in his arms, he readies to leave. With a subtle grin, he warns Levine not to lag behind. His certainty sparks her competitive spirit. Abruptly, she accepts the task. What was a retreat becomes a race. Both dash ahead, each determined to reach the city initial. Will reassures Luna Maria that she'll be safe. He dragged her from the sealed stone and promises to return. Certainty fills his face. With urgency, he sprints through the forest, carrying her while thinking of the city and their companions. Back at the city, tension grows. A youthful girl is taken hostage. New danger is previously happening. Tension surged as the nobleman entered his study, gaze clear and movements hurried. Outside, the mansion's tranquility was shattered by a faraway disturbance.
Lowering himself into the chair, he exhaled shakily, pressing his fingers to his temple. Each breath betrayed turning unease. From the window, ash curled above the treetops. The realization struck this was no ordinary event. Something colossal stirred outside the eastern woods. Uncertainty shifted to certainty. The timing, the location, it was too precise. This couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. A servant arrived with urgency, announcing the carriage's willingness. Rising swiftly, the master nodded. Evacuation was currently the only option. Relieved, the nobleman requested about the everyone. The servant reassured him the young lady was waiting at the carriage, and the staff had previously been touched to shelter. Before they could depart, enemies exposed themselves. Karen had been captured, restrained at sword point. Her father's choice to delay had been exploited. Amazement paralyzed the nobleman as he viewed his daughter in danger. The intruders grinned, using her as leverage to energy his compliance. Tears welled in Karen's gaze as she apologized to her father. Helpless, she was dragged back, the situation spiraling further out of control. Desperation clenched his chest. Powerless, the nobleman seemed his daughter suffer. Fury and remorse etched across his face. Faced with no other decision, the nobleman lifted his palms in submission. His tone shook as he decided to comply with their orders. However, his determination didn't waver. He demanded his daughter's release initial, calling out the enemy's affiliation with the Gardo Company. A smug reply arrived swiftly. The foe accepted the bluff was over and exposed his requirement. The nobleman was to accompany him. Resisting fiercely, Karen bit down on her captor's grip. Her abrupt defiance caused sorrow and disorder, disrupting their grip on the situation. In the confusion, a mighty blow was dealt to single of the attackers. The nobleman shouted in alarm as the scene unraveled rapidly. An abrupt attack erupted. The butler lunged ahead with precision, striking single of the captors and forcing them to release Karen. Terror flashed in the enemy's gaze. Karen had slipped from their grasp, and retaliation arrived too swiftly for them to respond. Steel collided violently in the narrow hallway. Sparks flew as the loyal servant engaged multiple foes. His speed immense them. Calling out her identity, the butler hurried to Karen's next. He offered an apology, kneeling briefly before resuming his defensive stance. From the shadows, a swordsman in ornate robes moved ahead. The foe recognized his closeness instantly. This was no mere bodyguard. Single captor stumbled back, scolded harshly for failing despite holding Karen as a shield. The swordsman moved in silently, guarding her. A fresh danger emerged. With a katana drawn, a cold-eyed warrior stated his aim. Disobedience would mean Karen's execution. Uncertainty covered the room. Johann stated the enemy's skill was formidable. Victor requested silently if rescuing Karen was still possible. Resigned, Victor offered his final order. If things moved wrong, Johann was to protect Karen, even if it meant creating him behind. With his choice made, Victor lifted his tone. He demanded to be taken to Lord Gardo, determined to face anything arrived following. Victor cried out as Karen was shoved harshly into the carriage. His protests were met with threats, drowning beneath the enemy's shouts. When requested about Victor, the captors decided to throw him in with the different captives, uninterested in further complications. Behind closed doors, a sinister strategy was formed. They would fabricate Victor's disappearance, using the disorder as their cover. With orders sacrificed, the group started boarding the carriages. The captives were loaded without defiance. Wheels shifted swiftly on stone roads. The carriages rolled into the distance, carrying prisoners and secrets deeper into foe palms. As the carriage rolled on, Victor leaned ahead and requested one question. Hidden nearby, a youthful maid looked with wide gaze. He wondered their knowledge of the giant attack. The swordsman denied involvement, claiming Gardo's forces simply responded swiftly. Uninterested in showing much, the man said he was just hired muscle. For answers, Victor would have to face Gardo himself. Within the carriage, Victor apologized to Karen, burdened with guilt. She responded evenly, forgiving him without delay. Resolve covered Karen's gaze. Though bound and captured, she chose patience, confident that the correct scene to move would come. Learning Karen's steady remarks, Victor recalled others who might turn the tide. His stare sharpened as he remembered the youthful man. Karen whispered his identity, Will. Her hope wasn't just sightless belief, but trust in others capable of changing everything. In a faraway forest, Will remained surrounded by companions. A subtle shift in the area caught his attention. Single partner requested what was wrong. Will replied that he had detected others calling for him, a tone familiar and urgent. Despite playful, Will remained serious. Others needed him, and he knew the moment to move had come. Will detected danger turning and urged his group to step faster. A detective urgency weighed heavily on him. Meanwhile, the enemy's carriage approached the city gates. Within the walls, disorder unfolded as giants launched a brutal assault. A pair of enormous beasts approach the city wall as warriors brace for combat. Among them stands a determined knight, prepared to defend the people behind her. Will, the black-haired hero, rushes ahead alongside the knight. He carries an unconscious girl in his arms, moving swiftly through the battleground with concentration and urgency. A colossal one-eyed fiend charges openly at the fortified wall. Disorder spreads as troops scramble to load the ballistae and ready for impact. Seizing the chance, the knight and an older warrior strike the monster's exposed back. With the giant collapsing, the troops press ahead. Victory is near as Will and his companions deliver the finishing blow, ensuring the creature stays down. The fallen titan groans as troops surround its frame, stabbing relentlessly to ensure it's neutralized. Among them, a warrior cheers, relieved that much danger is eliminated. Elsewhere, a moment fiend smashes into the battleground, sending troops flying through the area as rocks scatter from the impact. Screams erupt as single soldier clutches his wounded leg while everyone flee. Second giant advances, preparing a brutal strike on the vulnerable. From atop the walls, a mage commands the forces to divert the enemy's concentration. She asks her companions to defend the wounded below. Meanwhile, the wounded are being dragged to shelter behind the lines. Healers rush to their next as the disorder of combat rages on. Overwhelmed by the flow of wounded, healers struggle to leave pace. Cries for aid echo through the courtyard as medics rush from single wounded to second. Near the wall, a soldier narrowly escapes a deadly swing. His terror is seen as second monstrous person storms the defenses without delay. Worry sets in as a seasoned fighter observes the toll. Reinforcements had arrived, but exhaustion and injuries are forming rapidly across the ranks. Despite earlier victories, the foe shows no signs of stopping. Dread grips the wall captain. He understands that if this continues, the giants will breach the defenses and the entire city could be lost. Rejecting to back down, a knight lunges at a rampaging giant, her strike piercing the monster's neck and halting its momentum amid the disorder. Nearby, a girl is caught in the mouth of second creature. Shouts ring out as her companions scramble to cast a magic, desperately attempting to shield her. Just in moment, Will and the plated knight strike from both around. Their synchronized assault cuts down the danger before it can finish its attack. As the dust settles, Will supports the wounded girl while sharing a determined look with the knight beside him. Survivors view on in wonder. The fallen giant lies headless, its limbs severed. Gasps of recognition surged among the defenders as single girl shouts out, calling Will hero. Whispers confirm the blonde knight as the sword hero, Levine. Meanwhile, everyone speculate about Will, moved by his unequaled strength and clear technique. Watching the battleground, Will notes the city remains intact. Though he managed to sever only an arm, Levine had effortlessly lifted a giant's head. Their foe becomes clearer. These monsters are remnants of the Holy Demon War, Cyclopes formerly commanded by the Demon Lord himself. Back in camp, the girls from Will's party greet him with admiration and relief. He responds humbly, startled to find they had joined the combat. In the aftermath of combat, Levine orders answers. A girl urgently asks where the heroes had disappeared to during the crisis. She states the dire situation. Although the city fought hard, the giants held coming, and exhaustion among defenders further to rise. Will offers his assist without delay. Levine, confident in his strength, prepares to eliminate the monsters and restore steady. Luna Maria steps ahead, distracted by troubling thoughts. Something about the giant attack feels unnatural and calculated. She reveals a deeper fact: others intentionally broke a seal, triggering the invasion. Luna Maria voices a deeper worry: the giant's attack is merely a diversion. She believes their real objective lies elsewhere. Will's instincts confirm her suspicion. An abrupt dread grips him as he understands Karen and the everyone may be the actual targets. Levine reacts harshly, dismissing the urgency. Though skeptical of Will's worry, he allows him to depart if he chooses. Tension rises, but Will redirects concentration. He asks the cleric to aid the wounded while emphasizing the need for unity. Confident in his own strength, Levine scoffs. Using his sword, he declares himself sufficient for this battleground, unconcerned with further assistance. Levine raises his sword high and steps ahead solo. Declaring a task, he prepares to face the monsters without delay. A mighty swordsman appears on the battleground, his arrival causing amazement and wonder. Warriors recognize him instantly. He is the fabled sword hero. Within the ranks, murmurs grow. The strongest swordsman in the land has arrived. Troops straighten up, and commanders brace for a renewed offensive. With fearless determination, the sword hero charges forward. His sword slices through the colossal giants, clearing the choice. From the fortress walls, the defenders watch the shift unfold. Hope returns. Morale surges as they witness the combat beginning to turn in their favor. Abruptly, Will, clad in dark hair and purpose, lands beside the captain atop the wall. Will remained evenly on the fortress wall, using the attention of the ordering officer. Politely, Will explained his intentions to assist, but noted he required to depart temporarily. He requested they continue defending without him for the moment being. Without delay, he leapt from the high wall. The troops looked in disbelief, amazed he remained uninjured after that fall. Landing effortlessly, Will sprinted through the empty streets, his concentration clear and unwavering as he searched for signs of danger. Scanning the area, he heard the absence of any civilians. With turning worry, he wondered if the evacuation had been successful. Will arrived at the front gate of a great, imposing estate. Without slowing down, he touched toward the entrance with urgency in his steps. He pounded on the heavy doors, calling out his identity in hopes of being recognized. Lowering his arms, Will grabbed a far breath. His face shifted serious as he braced himself for what he might find within. Interior remained quiet and still. He named out to familiar names, but only cobwebs and unanswered area greeted him. Concerns covered his thoughts. Just as uncertainty grew, a youthful girl hurried into his arms. Will caught her, startled. The girl clung to Will, rattling with desperation. Her plea was simple, however urgent. She begged him to protect the everyone who were taken. Tears welled in her gaze as she named those in danger. Her tone cracked as she pleaded for the shelter of Lady Karen and the master. Will pressed for much details, and the maid explained in fragments. Both had been kidnapped by the Gardo company, and the situation had escalated swiftly. She described the scene. The alarm rang. Monsters attacked just after Will had departed, and the master ordered an immediate evacuation of the mansion. Defeat by dread, she had hidden while the everyone were taken back. Will gently reassured the maid, placing a grip on her head. Her courage had directed him, and currently he understood what required to be done. Certainty returned to his tone. He asked her to depart everything to him, vowing that he would restore all back safely. With urgency in his chest, Will readied to depart. He requested a map and confirmed the enemy's location, determined to rescue Karen and the master. Meanwhile, in second part of the city, a girl rushed through the streets, her pace quick and gaze scanning every corner. Calling out for others named Levine, she searched frantically. Each empty location deepened her worry. He was nowhere to be discovered. The girl wandered through narrow alleys, murmuring possibilities. Levine wasn't in the central or west. Next he might have gone with the everyone or departed the city. Worry deepened on her face. Her thoughts grew heavier, imagining what might have caused him to disappear without a trace. Memories of Levine's distracted face resurfaced. Even before they arrived in town, he appeared preoccupied. Something was clearly weighing on his thoughts. An abrupt carriage burst onto the street. With no moment to respond, she was flung aside by its reckless speed. Landing hard, she winced in sorrow. Her back ached, but frustration burned brighter. This setback wouldn't stop her from continuing the search. The speeding carriages tore through the city, their wheels kicking up dust as they passed. Bystanders voiced complaints, startled by the reckless pace. Within single of the vehicles, Karen and the master rested bound. Their expressions revealed tension, both aware of the danger surrounding them. Soon, the carriages moved an imposing building with fortified stone walls. It was clearly a stronghold distant from any place of shelter. Guards ordered the prisoners out. Karen and the master were escorted across the courtyard, seemed closely as they were marched within. The captors announced their delivery with a sneer. Karen and the master were dragged before Gardo, their future currently in his palms. Gardo, sitting confidently, mocked his captive and blamed him for disrupting the town. His arrogance covered the room as he exposed himself as the Gardo company's leader. A guard struck the prisoner, forcing him to kneel. Gardo seemed with a smirk, relishing the show of dominance. Grabbing the man by the hair, Gardo stated his rule. He demanded obedience, making clear who controlled the city. Will raises his sword with resolve after learning the Anaheim family has been taken hostage. He prepares himself to face the foe without delay. Within a shining circle, Anaheim lies defeated, bound tightly with rope. The foe looms over him, delivering a brutal blow. Anaheim's daughter, also captured, screams as she watches her father collapse. Despite her restraints, she struggles before the guards, consumed by dread and anger. The foe mocks Anaheim, reveling in his suffering. He taunts the weakened man while standing proudly over his broken frame. A monstrous person delivers grim word: an invasion has begun. But the brute named Gardo shows no worry, ignoring the turning danger outside. Gardo clutches his prisoner and smirks as tension rises. His mocking manner hints at knowledge of something ancient creatures known only through myth. Realization blows Anaheim.
Through squinted gaze, he recognizes the fact. The disorder around him was not random, it was orchestrated from the start. Laughter erupts from Gardo as he boasts of his movements. It was he who shattered the seal, releasing the giants buried in slumber. Anaheim, bloodied but defiant, asks Gardo's motives. The consequences of the giants breaching the walls could devastate everything, even his own forces. Unshaken, Gardo reveals his ambition with a grin stretched wide. He declares his goal without delay. He plans to claim the city as his own. The girl watches in amazement as the captor admits the giants will indeed restore destruction if they're allowed to roam unchecked. A twisted grin spreads across Gardo's face. He proposes a grim scenario. What if the giants only march through Anaheim's next of the city? He understands Gardo has chosen madness over reason, invoking ancient entities formerly loyal only to the demon lord. In his palms, Gardo reveals a sinister relic. Its identity, the giant's flute, marks it as the key to controlling the released monsters. Shouting in disbelief, Anaheim and his daughter recoil at the fact. Gardo brags about the cost of obtaining the artifact, unconcerned with the devastation it may restore. Gardo boasts with certainty, declaring his control over the giants through the flute. Scenes of destruction unfold in his remarks. Formerly, the giants break through. They'll tear down homes, shops, and entire districts, creating remains in their path. Showing his scheme, Gardo outlines the following phase. His company will fund the city's reconstruction, using the disorder to tighten its grip on local might. He imagines expansion outside this city. With the people's gratitude secured, he plans to rise further, aiming to dominate trade across the capital itself. Looking down at the fallen Anaheim, Gardo mocks him coldly. In his view, there's no room for rivals. Only victory, and Anaheim is currently obsolete. Instead than ending it swiftly, Gardo grins wickedly and mocks Anaheim. He plans to drag out the suffering, savoring each scene of dominance. Nearby, Anaheim's daughter cries out helplessly as he's beaten anew. Her defiance is stilled by guards, who restrain her while mocking her sorrow. Through the disorder, a cruel tone echoes. Gardo orders that Anaheim stay alive at least long enough to suffer much under his control. Bruised and breathless, Anaheim collapses solo on the patterned floor. Despite everything, he still holds on, barely conscious, but not, however, defeated. Though restrained, his daughter's determination hardens. Tears fall, but her gaze burns with resolve. As the girl cries out in desperation, the captors discuss her future. Her scream pierces the room, calling for Will. Her final hope, abruptly, a mighty energy blasts through the chamber. Guards are thrown off their feet, and the villains freeze, astonished by the unexpected intrusion. Will appears through the shattered window, landing with clear concentration. His gaze reflects unwavering determination as he surveys the disorder below him. Meeting her with a steady grin will reassures Karen. Her dread vanishes, replaced by relief and joy as hope returns at final. From the sidelines, others watch us silently. Their face changes, perhaps recognizing that the situation has shifted outside Gardo's control. Will dashes across rooftops, his gaze fixed forward. The wind rushes past as he races toward the enemy's base before it's too late. In leap, he calls out for Karen and Victor, seeking for any clue about the captive's location. Urgency tightens his grip as he runs. Information surfaces Gardo's company has multiple hidden bases. Will understands he's running out of moment and must move quickly before tragedy blows. In a surprise encounter, he meets a familiar face. Levine appears, tears welling up at the vision of Will. As they talk, Will learns Levine had been helping defend the city. She might contain the key to finding the captives before the giants strike anew. While Levine praises Will's courage, he turns to Lynx with urgency. There is something he needs, information that could shift the course of events. Levine's face turns curious as Will states. He's searching for a specific carriage signal that might begin him straight to the captives. Lynx recalls seeing it earlier, speeding down a nearby road. Will presses for certainty, and the answer sparks fresh resolve in him. Without wasting second moment, Will dashes off. He promises to talk later, creating behind an astonished but moved Levine in his path. As Will vanishes, Levine gathers herself. With sounds of fighting echoing from the east, she decides to head toward the danger to assist Hero. Will enters the scene with steady authority. Gardo and his men demand his identity, but one of them recognizes him, the same youth who formerly stopped their abduction. Karen rushes toward him, pleading for aid. Will's stare shifts to Anaheim's battered frame on the floor, and his face tightens with determination. With a burst of energy, Will releases a shockwave that blasts through the foe ranks, marking the beginning of his counterattack. The entire room freezes as an immense force fills the area. Even seasoned fighters can barely fight under the sheer energy Will emits. Single foe, astonished and kneeling, admits his mistake. Will wasn't just a reckless youth. Underestimating him was a grave error. A steady, however menacing swordsman steps ahead, his tone laced with amusement. He perception Will's killing aim and welcomes it with a sinister grin. With gaze wide and focused, the man declares his identity, Mishima, and announces himself as Will's following challenger. Will instantly notices the katana at Mishima's neck. Its design reminds him of Father Ronin, a sign this fresh foe is no ordinary fighter. Mishima launches ahead without delay. A shockwave trails behind as he charges. Vowing a deadly confrontation, using his sword, Mishima unleashes a flurry of high-speed slashes. The area is torn apart as he attacks relentlessly. Laughing with each strike, Mishima blows with lightning speed, but Will reads his movement and parries. The clash sends shockwaves through the area, however, Will stays composed. The swordsman closes in anew, pressing the attack with energy and precision. Will is forced back, his gaze wide, but he reacts just in moment. Despite the turning tension, Mishima taunts Will. He notes that Will hasn't even drawn his armament, however, believing it a sign of arrogance or weakness. Though moved by Will's agility, Mishima remains confident. He warns that evading solo won't be enough to win before his sharpened sword tears through the space between them. Karen watches in alarm as the attack barrels ahead with terrifying energy toward Will. Mishima unleashes a rapid sword-using strike. His speed overwhelms Will momentarily, claiming dominance with precision and twice the reaction moment.
Will charges ahead with his sword, meeting a mighty swordsman hooded in a patterned robe. A monstrous person looms in the background, but Will remains focused as the sword swings toward him. The floor is splattered with blood. Observers cry out in horror, believing Will has been struck down. His opponent's technique appears fatal, and the watchers assume the fight is over. However, the swordsman screams in sorrow. Blood erupts from his face as Will's counterattack lands precisely, startling every. Will rises uninjured, his face fierce. His attacker glares in disbelief, astonished by the reversal. Confusion spreads. The foe asks how a child could respond at that speed. The swordsman reflects on Will's astonishing skill. Despite releasing a precise katana technique, Will not only evaded it but replied with a direct counterattack. Certainty turns to denial as the samurai claims his sword style is unequaled. Even so, his opponent's composure begins to crumble under Will's steady closeness. Will steps ahead without dread. His strength stems from relentless training under the world's greatest swordsman, his teacher, whose spirit seems to linger behind him. Rejecting to approve the fact, the foe charges. He dismisses Will's claim as fantasy, aiming to end the combat. A swift, devastating strike from Will cuts through the enemy's assault. The fight concludes in a flash, with the swordsman overwhelmed and defeated. Stunned and frustrated, the swordsman fails to understand how a youth like Will can dismantle his swordplay. Each attack misses, and uncertainty begins to take root in his thoughts. Without delay, Will accelerates toward his target. His movements blur as he channels precise energy into a single strike. In that instant, Will vanishes from vision. His opponent panics, unable to locate him, and notices his grip weakening, his sword slipping back. A devastating aerial kick crashes down. Will blows with immense speed, sending the swordsman reeling backward, completely defenseless. The impact launches the foe across the arena. His sword falls to the ground, echoing the defeat he can no longer reject. Mishima lies motionless, defeated. The crowd watches in disbelief, unable to process how a youth triumphed over the feared warrior. Fury boils over as second man steps ahead, enraged by Will's interference. He vows vengeance and proclaims his ambition to seize might. Troops flood the hall, weapons drawn, responding to the eruption. Terror spreads as the confrontation escalates. Will stands steady while the armed group closes in from every around. Their numbers grow, surrounding him completely. With steady gaze, Will assesses the situation. He understands this was no isolated fight. Reinforcements have arrived, and the real combat is just beginning. A sinister person raises an enchanted artifact high, channeling a surge of energy. The heavens above responds, and ancient might stirs. Gaze glow in the darkness. One by one, dormant stone gargoyles awaken, their stare fixed on the battleground below. With a thunderous burst, the creatures launch into motion. Dozens take flight, summoned to enforce the will of their master. Encircled by troops and airborne beasts, Will stands solo at the center. The enemies close in from each direction. Mocking laughter erupts as the foe gloats. Reinforcements weren't enough currently. Will must face an army of gargoyles under a confident tyrant's command. The foe offers Will a cruel bargain: submit and survive. He mocks Will's defiance while holding innocent futures as leverage. Unshaken, Will reassures Karen and Victor from across the battleground. His promise is clear: he will defend them no matter the odds. Karen's gaze fills with hope. She believes in him completely, trusting that his strength will break through their dread. Infuriated by Will's determination, the foe unleashes his army. A wave of troops charges, weapons drawn and bloodlust rising. Will springs into action. Dodging the initial assault, he launches a counterstrike that sends shockwaves across the floor, scattering enemies in every direction. Gargoyles descend from above, but Will reacts instantly. With a mighty strike, he sends the monsters hurtling through the area, crushed by the energy of his attack. Momentum builds as he leaps ahead, cutting through foe lines without delay. Each movement is clear, deliberate, and devastating. In moments, the battleground lies quiet. Bodies and rubble cover the ground. Will stands solo, untouched, as even the boldest foes stare at him in disbelief. Terror sets in. The remaining troops hesitate. Will evenly reminds them they're the final ones standing. Desperation blows. The foe seizes the hostages anew, clinging to one final advantage, seeking to stall the inevitable. Will glares silently at his foe, unshaken by the danger to Karen's living. The villain, grasping for control, mocks his determination with laughter and arrogance. But the situation shifts. A steady tone interrupts. Johann appears beside Karen, his sword resting confidently on her captor's shoulder. Having escaped captivity during the disorder, Johann reveals he was imprisoned below. He acted swiftly when the opportunity arose. Grateful, Will acknowledges Johann's return. The loyal butler, ashamed of his earlier defeat, humbly thanks Will for the chance to redeem himself. Abruptly, a fresh person lunges at Will from behind. Caught off guard, he instinctively reacts, gaze narrowing as the following danger unfolds. With swift precision, Will takes down the final attacker. Nearby, Karen begins untying Victor, following Johann's instructions. Relief washes over Karen as she sees Will uninjured. She rushes to him, calling out his identity, with feeling flooding her tone. In his arms she discovers shelter. Will gently apologizes for arriving late, while Karen tearfully admits she never stopped believing he would come. As steady returns, Will turns to heal Victor. Though gravely wounded, he assures Karen that Victor will recover with his sorcery. Just as hope blossoms, eerie laughter echoes behind them. A dark closeness remains unseen, however distant from finished. Bruised and furious, the defeated man refuses to give up. Kneeling on the ground, he clenches his fist, vowing to rise anew despite the odds. Driven by desperation, he prepares for single final attack, gaze wide with madness. His rage builds, channeling each ounce of strength into a reckless final fight. Sinister laughter rang through the corridor as a colossal person approached. The group braced themselves, startled by the immense closeness that rose just forward. Glaring with hatred, the foe fixated on them, his rage boiling over. The cracked ground beneath his feet reflected the intensity of his feelings. Steady but steady, the girl reminded him of his downfall. With the Gald company crushed by Will, there was no single departed to shield him. Grinning madly, he lifted a chained artifact, the giant's whistle, vowing to rewrite future with its devastating might. As a monstrous eye parted above, the summoning started. He promised to destroy everything, dragging them every into remains with him. Terror covered her gaze as she identified the refuse in the enemy's grip. That cursed artifact, the giant's whistle, had summoned disorder and destruction from the city. Without delay, the youth launched ahead, his speed tearing the ground apart. He aimed openly at the source, determined to stop the catastrophe. In a burst of light, he soared through the corrupted space. The foe, now caught within a shining sphere, had no moment to respond. A crushing blow landed, sending the foe hurtling backward. Amazement rippled across the battleground as watchers looked him fall. Though beaten, the man's frame twisted grotesquely. The whistle exacted its toll, draining his living as madness consumed him. Overwhelmed with guilt, the girl apologized to Will. Despite seeing the whistle beforehand, she blamed herself for failing to move in moment. Abruptly, tremors shook the ground beneath them. Will lifted Karen as the team braced for impact, recognizing the identical signs that had preceded disaster formerly before. Orders were swiftly exchanged. While one group readied to evacuate civilians, Will chose to stay behind and confront the looming danger solo. Outside the walls, worry grew. A warrior woman assessed the damage and named for immediate evacuation, fearing structural collapse. Just moments earlier, the foe forces had breached the wall. An enormous horde of giants charged through. roaring with unrestrained fury. Leaping into action, the warrior struck with flawless precision. Her sword pierced the giant's thick flesh, halting its rampage instantly. Unfazed by the odds, she taunted the oncoming monsters, using their attention to herself. Her tone brought over the battleground like a task. From a distance, companions admired her fearless charge. Inspired, they rushed ahead to lend assist, prepared to partner her intensity. Explosions rocked the battleground as giants fell single after second. Her relentless assault created openings for everyone to strike. With a powerful bellow, she launched skyward, landing second devastating blow that sent her foes sprawling. Blood flew as her face remained steady and focused, undistracted by the scale of her foe. The identity Levine echoed like a memory, pulling her briefly into a past covered with praise and purpose. Her father's tone formerly promised she could become a master swordsman. Grinning brightly as a child, she had promised to grow stronger. That promise, formed with innocence, currently fueled her courage on the battleground. Planting her feet strongly, Levine faced the following wave solo. She challenged the giants without delay, demanding they show their actual strength. From the ramparts, troops rallied to her next. Her bravery sparked a surge of unity. Every appeared the sword hero into the fray. From atop the battleground, a cry rose above the clash. They had to defeat the giants to defend the city. Amid the mayhem, warriors launched coordinated attacks. Weapons tore through thick limbs, while fire seared hardened flesh, carving a bloody choice through foe ranks. In retaliation, the giants hurled enormous boulders, one of which shattered violently from impact near the city walls, scattering troops below. Charging into danger, a group of warriors confronted the incoming danger head-on. The earth cracked beneath their weapons as they pushed ahead without delay. Exhausted but unrelenting, Levine collided with second giant, sweat mixed with blood as she narrowly dodged an incoming strike, her determination unbroken. With her staff lifted, the mage released a surge of sorcery. Dark energy spiraled toward the battleground, erupting in a controlled blast that struck the giants with precision. Close-range fighters seized the scene. As the sorcery astonished their enemies, they pierced through the giants' exposed flanks with unrelenting energy. Noticing only single foe remained, a call rang out to Levine. Without delay, she dashed ahead, gaze fixed on the final danger. Steel met flesh in a decisive clash. Her sword plunged deep, ending the last giant's defiance in an one mighty strike. Cheers erupted as the final foe collapsed. The battleground fell quiet. Afterward roared with victory. The giants had been defeated at last. Levine remained victorious as the crowd erupted in celebration. Her companions hurried to her next, joy and relief written across their faces. Without caution, the ground shook violently. Fractures split the earth, and dread replaced triumph as terror surged among the warriors. Single soldier pointed toward the horizon, alarmed by a turning disturbance. Something was appearing from the faraway peak range. Enormous debris burst from the terrain, showing a colossal person rising from the earth. Its form dwarfed everything seen before. Terror gripped the ranks. The troops understood they now faced the actual leader, the head Cyclops, far larger than any prior foe. The colossal Cyclops emerged from the peak forest, its colossal frame rattling the earth with every step it took ahead.
Far in the forest, an enormous creature started to stir as shadows from above passed over its hiding place. In the distance, a group of adventurers shifted in alarm as the giant form emerged from the treetops. Recognition set in the colossal Cyclops had remained dormant just outside the city for an unknown length of moment. No giant they'd faced before could compare. Its closeness dwarfed each danger encountered until now. Warriors stricken with dread understood the terrifying fact they were expected to face this fiend following. Dread swept through the ranks as troops shouted, each declaring the fight was suicide and insisting on retreat. Without delay, many shifted and fled, driven by terror and the immense urge to survive. Single girl named out, attempting to rally them, but her plea was ignored as they ran. Among the few who remained, reality returned in only an enormous army could partner the giant, and they were overpowered. Then, as quiet fell, others whispered, "Great hero," while gaze widened at the arrival of an unknown person approaching the battleground. A colossal person emerged beside the girl, its closeness casting a shadow of wonder and uncertainty. Meanwhile, troops observed the Cyclops, noting its stillness. They assumed it remained idle only because it had just awakened. Despite the temporary steady, dread mounted. The sheer size of the creature formed the city's defenses appear meaningless. Desperation surged among the ranks. Some troops accepted the adventurers' past aid, while everyone shouted in confusion as civilians fled from the approaching doom. In the disorder, orders from the royal court arrived too late to rally morale. The remaining guards remained paralyzed, torn between duty and survival. An ordering tone rang out as a soldier rallied the Northwood Guards, urgency laced in each word. Orders arrived swiftly rescue and escort the remaining citizens. With purpose renewed, the troops scattered to bring out their mission, above the city. The Cyclops rose with a grin, its immense frame still but threatening. No single could predict when its anger would be released. Disorder emerged, troops sprinted past the fallen, shouting for everyone to leave moving. There was no moment departed to pause. Alarm bells screamed through the area. Single warrior seemed up trembling. Before him remained the embodiment of destruction, still watching, still waiting. A heavy quiet surrounded the youth who remained solo, burdened by the title of great hero that now weighed much than ever. Within his thoughts, a younger version of himself emerged. Trembling, the dread he used to skin had never truly left him. Memories appeared, a memory of a sword formerly offered to him with hope. His past self wondered his current determination and strength. The memory of his father, formerly a proud and mighty knight, lingered in his thoughts. Recalling childhood stories, he remembered how heroes never rushed. No matter how powerful the foe was, they remained and fought. He desired to be like them. A twisted reflection confronted the hero, mocking him with remarks of uncertainty. That shadow self claimed to be his actual nature, single, without the courage to fight. Before the despair could take contain, a familiar tone dragged him back. The girl gripped his face, gaze covered with urgency, calling him to rise. Confusion blurred his thoughts. He wondered what he'd just experienced, uncertain if it was a dream or memory. Though his frame ached, he assured them it was only fatigue. The wound slowed him, but he refused to show weakness. Looking around, they understood everyone were gone. Only the several of them remained at the now abandoned front, left to face the danger solo. With a gentle breath, the hero tightened his fist. He gazed at the sword planted before him, a scene of clarity settling into his stare. His companions urged him to retreat. Their injuries were mounting, and exhaustion had set in, but they still seemed to him for direction. Before he could answer, a girl hurried ahead, shouting his identity. Her arrival was abrupt, covered with urgency. She explained she had searched the eastern next to the city. Second, Giant's fallen frame nearby confirmed the citizens' terror was well-founded. As they shifted their gaze outward, a lone person recalled his choice. He had seen the enormous Cyclops on the way in. Retreat surged through the city. One question remained: would they simply reveal the Cyclops' rampage unchecked while all fled? Though despair had taken root, the girl hesitated. Remarks caught in her throat until she eventually answered. With newfound resolve, she moved ahead. Gaze wide with determination, she exposed the chance of a solution no one had considered. There emerged a legendary armament, the Holy Sword. It was said to contain the might to defeat even the strongest of foes. Her tone rang clear with certainty. The hero remained speechless. Amazement overwhelmed him as he understood what the following step must be. Recollections appeared as the girl mentioned Will, the youth formerly seen as arrogant, whose real purpose had brought him to the city. She remembered how Will had arrived beside Master Levine, his closeness always raising asks. Currently, with gaze full of desperation, she cried out that this must be fate. If Master Levine wielded the Holy Sword, victory could still be possible. But the hero resisted. His tone cracked as he shouted in denial, convinced that he was unworthy and could never be the chosen single. Silently, she started to speak anew, asking where he had been earlier. Her manner shifted, not accusatory, but seeking clarity, seeking for fact in the disorder. A gentle confession escaped the hero. He had accompanied Will to the holy site, but faltered to draw the Holy Sword. Tears welled as he stated the fact aloud. The weight of that defeat had never departed his shoulders. Visions of force and despair returned. Burdened by expectations, he crumbled beneath the symbol of fate, convinced he lacked what everyone believed he had. Still, the girl gripped on. She named him the hero, pleading for him not to surrender. Her belief collided with his crumbling will. In a surge of feeling, he struck the ground, overwhelmed by fury, sorrow, and self-loathing. The scene cracked his restraint, showing the turmoil within. Abrupt glimpse of a symbol on Levine's shoulder stiffened all. The sign, unmistakable, exposed what they had doubted. With gentle breath, he remained still. Recognition dawned in their gaze. Levine was indeed the chosen hero of the sword. Amid the settling debris, a lone person remained steady while everyone looked on. Immobile in disbelief, the wind shifted her cloak, showing much than just combat scars. Recognition gave way to amazement as they understood the fact they had appeared. Others whose identity was never what it seemed. Moving ahead, one of the girls used to steady her tone, demanding answers to the abrupt unraveling of their trust. Asks piled up why the disappearance, the quiet, and the hidden fact brought since their arrival in the city. Gaze covered with sorrow, They wondered aloud if they'd ever truly been her companions, or just strangers chasing a lie. Tension lingered as quiet fell. Frustrated by the lack of response, one of the girls moved ahead, her tone cutting through the still area. Feeling overcame restraint. She struck Levine across the face, the blow echoing louder than any remark spoken. Tears welled up as she stated her departure. Disappointment weighed heavier than anger, and she shifted back from the partner she no longer recognized. Second used to speak, but remarks faltered. One by one, the party started to travel off. The bond formerly explained now fractured. Departed behind, a girl pleaded with Levine to explain. Desperation clung to her tone as their friends disappeared into the distance. Harsh remarks cut deeper than weapons. With trembling gaze, the girl was cast back, asked she had been mistaken all along about who he truly was. Levine shifted his back to the battleground, walking solo shrouded in ash and remorse, his clenched fists the only sign of what he held back. Distant from the broken group, villagers gathered, unaware of the storm looming outside their quiet morning. The earth shook as a monstrous, horned giant stomped into view, its closeness solo, warped the area with dread. From the field forward, Levine spotted the creature's advance. The confrontation had arrived, and there would be no much moment to run. Amid the wreckage, single lone person remained. Surrounded by debris and fallen enemies, he muttered a frantic belief he required to escape as well. A tone cried out through the dust. Following the noise, Levine discovered others trapped beneath shattered stone, pleading for aid. The wounded explained they weren't hit openly but had blacked out during the impact. They had been stuck under the rock since. While assessing the situation, Levine heard the approaching giant in the distance. Moment was running out. Without delay, he forced the rocks apart, freeing the wounded with urgency as danger rose nearer. Supporting the wounded man, Levine pressed ahead, steady despite his own sorrow. The combat wasn't over, and neither was his duty. The rescued man replied with gratitude, marveling at Levine's strength and determination. Though quiet, Levine's gaze betrayed the toll he bore. A shadow rose above them. The colossal giant lifted its arm, prepared to strike both down in one crushing blow. With no moment to flee, Levine shoved his partner aside and took the full brunt of the attack. Frame hurled into the earth. Barely conscious, he lay broken. Thoughts blurred as he laughed bitterly, ashamed at how distant he had fallen from what a hero should be. Levine von Allenheim was born a daughter of nobility on the Western continent. Her future shaped by heritage and tradition, despite her gender. She grabbed up the sword, idolizing her father, Isaac, a beloved warrior. Her skill flourished under his watchful eye, though her mother silently wished for a gentler choice. When the holy sign of the hero emerged, Levine dreamed of glory. She hoped her father would be proud, unaware that future had previously shifted. Joy shifted to dread as her mother, through tears, delivered the heartbreaking word. Her father had died in disgrace. From that scene, the realm she knew started to darken. Following her father's disgrace, Levine and her mother lived in gentle exile. Rumors lingered, but her mother's belief in her husband never wavered. Single day, Levine formed her decision. With determination burning in her chest, she pledged her living to the sword her father formerly wielded. Tears in her gaze, she swore to restore her family's identity and reclaim their lost honor as Levine, the hero of the sword. Victories emerged. Monsters fell, tales surged, and companions gathered. To avoid pity, she chose to dress as a man. At initial, every appeared right. But with each triumph, the hindrance of expectations grew heavier. Memories of her father's praise formerly offered Levine strength. But currently, the sword she held felt like a chain she could no longer bear. As dread and self-uncertainty crept in, she clung to the role she had created, grinning for the crowds, while hiding the turning emptiness within. Far down, her actual self was buried beneath pride and dread. She had sealed it back to preserve the illusion. Under the moon's glow, she collapsed. An eagle emerged beside her, its closeness unsettling, however strangely calming. The eagle answered. Leo's, god of Table Peak, had come. Her choice was about to change. Levine, barely able to step, wondered the eagle's closeness. It exposed itself as a guardian not of her, but of others else. The eagle answered of Will, a youth lifted by deities, whose strength came from divinity. Levine understood she had met him before. Crushed by shame, she compared herself to Will. Though marked as a hero, she viewed only weakness in her reflection. To her, the sign was never a blessing. It was a lie worn for selfish ambition. But the eagle disagreed. A hero symbol solo meant little. It offered her a story single that might change everything. Formerly a nobleman of the Western continent, Isaac von Allenheim served with honor in the army, gaining the trust of numerous. While on duty, he heard of bandits threatening his dwelling. Unable to move officially, he broke ranks to defend his people. Though his movement saved a village, they were branded unlawful. His death was hidden and his family cast out. The eagle exposed the story was actual. Levine's father was no traitor, he was a hero who chose futures over law. With fresh clarity, Levine was urged to turn and view what truly remained behind her. Turning around, Levine viewed the future she had touched, those rescued by her sword, and comrades who formerly believed in her. She confessed her failures and pride, acknowledging the fact she had long avoided. However, even in her remorse, gratitude stirred. With renewed purpose, she remained tall. As Isaac von Allenheim's daughter, she reclaimed her identity not from vanity, but from pride. The giant currently lay defeated before her. Evidence of strength born not from symbols but conviction. Though wounded, Levine pressed on. Her spirit burned brighter than sorrow, and her determination could no longer be shaken. He charges ahead, sword drawn, releasing a mighty attack that splits the earth. With unrelenting speed, he closes in on his target. The creature reacts too late as the boy's momentum carries him through its defenses, slicing into its flesh. Blood splatters as the youth stands still, sword shining. He reflects on how light the armament feels, like it belongs to him. Nearby companions respond in wonder and dread. A larger danger, a giant, approaches. While everyone hesitates, the youth steps ahead, solo, gaze steady. Asks only for a promise that they'll survive. With a gentle grin, he prepares himself for the following combat, knowing it's his duty to fight and defend. Reflects on his past, recalling the faces of those he cares for. With determination, he prepares to face the giant, accepting that he may not be forgiven for his choices. He charges with blinding speed, his sword slicing across the giant's frame. The impact shakes the ground, creating far gashes in the enemy's skin. Exhausted, he stands before the monster's colossal frame. His frame is near its limit, and he struggles to stay upright, legs barely supporting him. He recalls his father's strength, standing solo with unwavering determination. With a final bellow, he releases his might. The earth erupts beneath him as he clashes formerly much with the giant's crushing energy. An abrupt energy arrives from the heavens, rattling the battleground. One person rushes ahead, guarding the wounded youth with unwavering strength as everyone look on in amazement. The impact blows with devastating might, sending debris flying and the ground rupturing around them. From the ash, a familiar face appears. Reinforcements have arrived, hope returns,